Alright, so we're watching some history today. Um, Mostly because I didn't feel like playing any games, and I love history, so I thought, why not just stream some history stuff? So that's what we're going to be doing. I'm going to be live for a couple hours, but for the first hour, we're just going to watch some history on World War One, the full part, and make sure y'all can fully see it too. Do do do. I want to make sure y'all can see at least most of the video. Alright, let's get on with the show. Do, 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 do.
1914. The great powers of Europe are divided into two rival alliances. The Triple Entente, France, Britain, and Russia, united by fear and suspicion of Germany, Europe's new strongest power. And the Triple Alliance, Germany, which fears encirclement by its rivals,
Yeah,
Austro-Hungary,
fair, honestly.
clinging on to a fragile empire, and Italy, seeking gains at French expense.
To be fair, if my enemies were surrounding me, I'd be pretty worried too. I don't blame Germany for being nervous about that. I'd be pretty nervous if I had people surrounding me as well that didn't exactly like me.
The spark comes on the 28th of June in the city of Sarajevo. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, is assassinated by a 19-year-old Slav nationalist named Gavrilo Princip.
If I remember what happened in this actual thing, I believe he was supposed to be assassinated by someone else, but something happened, so they took a different route. And that different route, he ended up going straight into him and getting assassinated anyway. So, two people tried to assassinate him. Man dodged one, only to get into another one, if I remember correct. Yeah, I still can't believe that one dude nearly gets killed twice. Well, nearly gets killed once, takes a wrong turn, then gets killed, and indirectly leads to the First World War. Well, not indirectly.
Austro-Hungary accuses its Balkan rival Serbia of having aided the assassin and sends an ultimatum demanding humiliating concessions. Serbia rejects the ultimatum, and Austro-Hungary declares war. Within hours, Austrian forces are shelling Belgrade. The Russian Tsar, Nicholas II, feels honor-bound to defend Serbia, a fellow Slav nation, and orders the Russian army to mobilize. German Emperor Wilhelm II has promised his support to Austro-Hungary. He and his generals see conflict with Russia as inevitable, and the sooner the better, as Russian strength grows year on year. Russian mobilization is used to justify German mobilization, followed by a
But yeah, that's something that happened a lot, like in World War One and even World War Two. Is it was a couple people fighting, but all these people had these treaties like to work together, and due to that stuff, a lot of countries started to get roped in, and then some also got. In some cases, they just willingly came in, or they were indirectly punished by it due to where they're located. So that also dragged them in. But yeah, that's what a lot of it actually started from. It was just some dude gets killed, something like that, or gets attacked. Other countries swear to help if something happened in there due to an alliance. And it just led to a bunch of people joining the war because, like in this, it's like, hey, we help you, we help you. And then others get roped in as they agree to help said, let's say France said they're going to help Germany. I know they actually didn't. They get roped in because guess what? Germany's helping them. And now they're at war with these two. So guess what? French is going to send theirs in to help.
On Russia. Germany knows war with Russia means war with Russia's ally, France. It has developed the Schlieffen Plan to meet this threat of a war on two fronts. First, its armies will advance rapidly through neutral Belgium to encircle and destroy French armies near Paris and win a quick victory.
Honestly,
Then its
not a bad
forces can move
strategy.
east to deal with Russia, whose huge army will take much longer to mobilize. And so Germany declares war on
Russia
France.
had a pretty big
6
army,
million
back
men are now marching to war across
World
Europe.
War I, especially for snow, though, they were not really prepared for anything.
Italy, however, remains neutral. The terms of the Triple Alliance don't bind it to join an offensive war.
Italy,
The United States also declares its neutrality. President Wilson and the American public have no desire to get entangled in Europe's war.
Yeah, that was part of our entire thing.
Britain is France's ally, but at first
we would not indirectly interfere with wars unless something happens to drag us in. Which, I mean, nowadays we don't call them wars, but it happens anyway. But that was a part of our thing that we agreed that we wouldn't like go to war with random people for no reason or help join wars because we really didn't want to at the time. At least that's when the U.S. was first created.
It's not clear if it will join the war against Germany. But when German troops invade Belgium, whose neutrality Britain has guaranteed, an ultimatum is sent from London to Berlin, demanding they withdraw. It's ignored, and Britain declares war.
Like I said, what happened? Belgium, it was chilling out, but thanks to where it was at, Germany used it to cross over, and that indirectly brought them in because they are now technically aiding and they're being forced into it as they're getting invaded to go to France. So that drags them into the war as well. And that'll happen with a couple other countries as we go. But that was the start of it because that also brought Britain in as well when Germany started to do this kind of stuff going through Belgium. With that said, though, I like history, so I will be pausing it every now and then to actually talk about some stuff that it may not say that I sort of remember history-wise because I can't remember it all, but I do like World War I and World War II history, so I'll add a little bit here and there as I go. But with that said, I'm actually going to go grab a drink real fast, as usual. Stay nice and hydrated while doing all this. And till then, I'll let the video play out for y'all so y'all can just enjoy the video while I go grab a drink.
A British expeditionary force lands in France, while the German invasion is held up for crucial days by Belgian resistance at the fortress city of Liège. German troops commit several massacres against Belgian civilians. The atrocities are inflated by Allied propaganda and help turn public opinion in neutral countries against Germany. France, unaware of Germany's great encircling attack, launches Plan 17, an offensive into German territory. But in the Battle of the Frontiers, they're driven back with enormous losses on both sides. The British Expeditionary Force clashes with the German army at Mons, but the British are heavily outnumbered and soon join the French in retreat.
Yeah,
the Allies make their stand.
The British in the beginning, I'm gonna be honest, they did not send a lot of people, like, at all. It definitely led to a good bit of them having to fall back, especially like in this first battle stuff, in these first battles. Because they wanted to help French, but they weren't ready for how many Germans there actually were. Combine that with their already, even though it's on both sides, but combine that with both sides already losing high amounts of troops and outnumbered, it's a pretty bad battle for you. That doesn't, of course, obviously they didn't lose completely.
And at the River Marne, 40 miles outside Paris. Their desperate counterattack saves the city and drives the Germans back. Yep. Both sides suffer.
Fighting in a city, urban warfare, if you're on home turf, you obviously have an advantage of knowing the city better. So that's just always a fun thing that I always find interesting is how many armies will go into major cities that they know are being defended and try to take them, because that's where you see like a lot of your major casualties. Besides on, like, say trench warfare where it's a slow back and forth, it's mostly in these cities. Because even if you have a bigger army, you'll see them push in a lot. Sometimes in some of these battles, and it's just catastrophic because the defenders aren't going to want to leave their city unless they utterly have to. And you have a bigger force, perhaps, but you want to lose a lot more because those defenders know the city a lot better than you do.
For 250,000 casualties.
Damn, that's a lot of
The
people.
race to the sea begins as both sides try to outflank each other to the north. A series of clashes leads to the First Battle of Ypres, where the Allies desperately cling on and prevent a German breakthrough. There are more heavy losses on both sides.
How many were we lost? Let me move my phone because I'm looking at that through chat. So yeah, Germany lost 1,000 more than them, but both sides already lost a lot, and not adding up, but this is just the beginning, and it looks like we're already getting close to 1,000,000 casualties. We're a little under 500,000.
The two armies then dig in along the entire 350-mile front, seeking shelter from deadly machine gun fire and artillery shells. Trench warfare has begun.
Yep, that's where you start to see a lot of losses from diseases, all kinds of stuff. It's just trench warfare is a nasty thing.
British warships win the first naval battle of the war at Heligoland Bight, sinking 3 German cruisers. Britain has the most powerful navy in the world, 29 modern battleships to Germany's 19.
That's a lot of battleships.
They now impose a naval blockade on Germany, preventing contraband goods, including food, from reaching it by sea. The aim is to bring Germany's economy to its knees and force it to surrender.
Yeah, breaking an economy
But
is a
week
good way
later,
to stop
the British
enemy.
cruiser HMS Pathfinder becomes the first victim in history of a lethal new weapon, the submarine-launched torpedo. German submarines, or U-boats, have a surface range of 9,000 miles and can attack undetected from beneath the waves. They herald a deadly new challenge to Britain's command of the seas.
I also think my audio for this might be a bit louder than me, so I'm going to turn it down just a smidge so y'all can hear me a bit better.
On the Eastern Front, Russian armies invade
anyways,
East Prussia.
Hey, Ducky.
But they blunder
Glad to
into
have you back,
disaster
as
at the
usual.
Battle of Tannenberg, where General von Hindenburg and his Chief of Staff, Erich Ludendorff, mastermind a brilliant German victory, taking 90,000 prisoners and destroying an entire Russian army. The Russians contribute to their own defeat by transmitting uncoded wireless messages.
Ouch.
A second
Not even
massive
coding
German
it?
victory at Masurian Lakes forces the Russians into retreat. In just 6 weeks, the Russian army suffers nearly 1/3 casualties. Meanwhile, Austro-Hungary's invasion of Serbia suffers a humiliating reverse at the Battle of Tsar.
They don't pay you enough to be in this hall.
Austro-Hungary's offensive against Russia also ends in disaster and retreat. With
Honestly, the Russians not sending coded stuff, though, kind of surprises me. I know, especially in World War I, they're, like, really under-prepared for, winter stuff like that, but I didn't think they were even sending uncoded messages. You know, now I really know why, even with their numbers, they were losing so much, because they really did not have their stuff together at all.
the loss of more than 300,000 men. The fortress town of Przemysl is cut off and besieged by the Russians. The Germans are forced to come to the rescue, launching a diversionary attack towards Warsaw. It leads to weeks of brutal winter fighting around the Polish city of Łódź, but there is no clear winner. Meanwhile, the Turkish Ottoman Empire has joined the...
I really wish for each battle they would say the casualties, because if they were, I'd honestly start trying to write it down, and because I want to see like each year. So we're still in the first year. How many people were killed each year in battles during the World War for each year. I might actually check that out after we're done with this, if I remember. So, Ducky, if you're still here by the end, please do remind me about that, and we
The
can go
Central
check that.
Powers, declaring war on its old enemy, Russia. Turkish warships bombard the Russian ports of Odessa and Sevastopol. While in the Caucasus,
Yeah, no, it's going to
Russian
definitely get
troops
repeated a
cross the
lot,
Turkish frontier.
Ducky. The Germans really did save it a lot. Let's be honest. The Ottoman, it is the Ottoman Empire, right?
Beyond Europe,
I butchered that, but yeah, Hungary was getting their ass kicked. Let's be honest, they got their ass kicked if it was not for Germany coming to help them. And even then, if Germany came to help them, if these guys didn't step in, it would have been a bloody war for Russia and Serbia. Yeah, it's Serbia. I'm not the best with geology and remembering, but yeah, Serbia and Russia would have had a bloody war if France and Britain didn't help to kind of push Germany to actually help them on that side.
the war rages on the world's oceans and in far-flung European colonies. German troops cross into British East Africa, modern Kenya, and occupy Taveta, while Allied forces seize the German colony of Togoland, modern Togo. But British forces invading German Cameroon are defeated at Garoua and Nsangakong.
Wait, hang on. I didn't know Germany had Cameroon down there still. That's actually interesting, because I was not aware that Germany had troops down there. I knew they had allies down there. I didn't think Germany itself had actual land down there.
3,000
Same
strong
with
force attacking
Britain.
German
I didn't think
Southwest
Britain
Africa,
still had land out there.
modern Namibia, is captured at Sanfontaine. A month later, British landings at Tanga end in chaos and defeat at the hands of a much smaller German force led by Colonel von Lettow-Vorbeck. Cut off from Germany, Lettow-Vorbeck goes on to wage a highly successful guerrilla war against the Allies, tying down huge numbers of troops. In Asia, Japan honors its treaty with Britain and declares war on Germany. Japanese forces go on to seize the German naval base at Tsingtao.
People getting roped
The
in now
German
from
colonies of
trees.
Samoa and New Guinea surrender to troops from New Zealand and Australia. But in the Pacific, off the coast of Chile, German Admiral von Spee's powerful East Asia squadron sinks 2 British cruisers at the Battle of Coronel. Both ships are lost with all hands.
Oh,
5 weeks
that's
later,
a lot of
he runs
casualties.
into a British naval task force at the Falkland Islands. 4 of the 5 German cruisers are sunk. Von Spee
Bro
goes down
killed
with
2
his
ships,
flagship.
then lost all of his besides 1.
Meanwhile,
That
in
is,
the Middle East,
that's not a good track
British
record
troops seize
for
control
battles.
of the Ottoman port of Basra, securing access to the vital Persian oil that fuels the British fleet.
No, it's actually a real quick. I want to pause. That's actually something that I find really interesting. While the U.S. has a large amount of oil that we can produce for ourselves and stocked up, compared to some of the other countries, a lot of this could have changed. But from what I remember, a lot of oil actually comes from the Middle East for y'all. So that's actually kind of devastating if you lose access to that. If I'm wrong about this, it's been a while since I looked. This could have changed because that was older. But if I'm wrong, good for y'all. But on the other side, that's really devastating to lose.
That winter, Austrian troops finally capture Belgrade. But the Serbs then counterattack and drive them back once more. The fighting in Serbia has already cost around 200,000
I'm not gonna lie, Ducky.
casualties
That is kind of funny. Declaring war last second so you don't have
in
to
the
pay
North Sea,
for
German
this stuff.
warships mount a hit-and-run raid against
That's a
English
funny way to
coastal
do that.
towns, shelling
Very
Hartford,
smart move on y'all.
Whitby, and Scarborough, and killing more than 100 civilians. On the Western Front, the French launched their first major offensive against the German lines.
All right, we're starting to get on the offensive of the Allies now.
Leads to small
Let's go.
gains at a cost of 90,000 casualties. While in the Caucasus...
See, that's why I don't like I keep saying, it'll go a couple battles. It won't say, like, how many people were lost, like that naval battle. It just said how many ships were lost, not how many people were on the crew and lost. And then it'll tell you for that battle. Guessing it's only maybe doing major battles? But I wouldn't really have liked it if this video had them all. Still recommend watching it, though, as it does cover a lot of important stuff history-wise with World War I.
An Ottoman offensive through the mountains in midwinter ends in disaster at Sarıkamış. Turkish casualties total 60,000, many frozen to death. On the
a lot of people
front,
freezing now.
That
this
first
is where
Christmas is marked in some sectors by a short truce, and games of football.
All these people who dress for military, you just got this guy with a pipe and a nice fur coat on in the middle of a battlefield. That man is living life on the battlefield. But yeah, no, on a side note, though, this is when we're going to start seeing a lot of people freeze to death, especially in colder areas where it's winter, and some of them just did not have the proper gear, especially in trench warfare. Trench warfare. So there is
no
that.
Man's land, the killing zone between the trenches.
That Christmas truce, though, was an amazing thing.
January 1950.
I know I just paused it, but I generally do actually. It just reminded me that I do generally love hearing stuff like that, like in the middle of the war, because it really brings a bit of human to them. That's just not like this guy's killing this guy. Free to play player, yeah, pretty much. But yeah, I do, like I said, I do generally love stories like that. That adds a bit of human to it to show you that one side wasn't just monster stuff like that. It's at the end of the day, a lot of these were just 18 to 20-year-old guys that were trying to get their life together that got sent to war, and that at the end of it, they don't want to just. I'm not going to say all, but most don't want to kill people, all that stuff. They want to have fun.
World War I is just 5 months old, and already around 1 million soldiers have fallen. A war that began in the Balkans has engulfed much of the world. The Central Powers, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire, fight the Allies, Britain, France, Russia, Serbia and Montenegro, Belgium, and Japan. In Poland and the Baltic, the Russian army has suffered a string of massive defeats, but continues to battle German and Austro-Hungarian forces. Austro-Hungarian troops have also suffered huge losses and are humiliated by their failure to defeat Serbia.
Oh, come on,
In
Hungary.
the Caucasus
Are you
Mountains,
still losing to
Russian
Serbia?
and Ottoman forces
Look how
fight
small
each
they
other
are.
in freezing winter conditions.
Damn, Germany really did pick a bad ally
While
with
on the
them.
Western Front, French, British and Belgian troops are dug in facing the Germans, in trenches stretching from the English Channel to Switzerland.
Yep.
As part of the world's first strategic bombing campaign, Germany sends 2 giant airships.
Actually, you know, while watching this though,
to bomb
Ducky,
Britain.
how have you been?
They
It's
hit
been
the
a while
ports
since I've
of
seen you in
King's
chat.
Lynn and Great
I've also
Yarmouth,
haven't streamed
damaging
in a couple
houses
days
and killing
because I was
4
taking a break.
civilians. At sea, at the Battle of Dogger Bank, the British Navy sinks 1 German cruiser, but the rest of the German squadron escapes. Command of the seas has allowed Britain to impose a naval blockade of Germany, preventing vital supplies, including food, from reaching the country by sea. Germany now retaliates with its own blockade. It declares the waters around the British Isles to be a war zone, where its U-boats will attack Allied merchant ships without warning.
Yeah.
Britain relies on imported food to feed its population. Germany plans to starve her into surrender.
And that's the disadvantage of being inbred and stuff like that.
On the
You're on
Eastern
that island. That
Front,
blockade
German
is
Field Marshal
devastating
von
for outside.
Hindenburg launches a winter offensive and inflicts another massive defeat on the Russian army at the Second Battle of Masurian Lakes. The Russians lose up to 200,000 men, half of them surrendering amid freezing winter conditions. The Russians have more success against Austria-Hungary. The city of Przemysl falls after a 4-month siege,
You're on summer break
netting
or
the
something,
Russians
I'm guessing.
100,000 prisoners. Austria-Hungary's total losses.
Oh
now
yes, I
reach
completely
2
forgot to
million.
mention. I forgot I had it equipped. Yes. It
Meanwhile,
is
the
actually
British and
new.
French send
Same
warships
artist.
to the
I actually
Dardanelles
commissioned them
to
for a
threaten
toggle
Russian armies
for a
Russian
thing.
armies invade East Prussia, but they blunder
Oh shoot,
into
that
disaster
went back farther. I
to
accidentally
meet
went back.
fierce Turkish resistance.
Hang on, let me see if I can't find it.
Reaching the country reached 2 million. On the Eastern Front,
Okay, there we go. Sorry
German
about that.
Field
Yeah.
Marshal von Hindenburg
But yes, it is a
launches
new
winter
toggle.
offensive
This is
and inflicts
what
another
Moki
massive
actually
defeat on the
wears.
Russian army at
I
the
finally
Second
decided to
Battle
get a
of
commission for
Masurian
a
Lakes.
toggle for it.
The Russians lose up to 200,000 men, half of them surrendering amid freezing
Yeah, I hope you had a
winter
good summer.
conditions.
If you're dusting your stuff off
The
to
Russians
go back
have
to
more
work or
success
something, I'm
against
guessing.
Austria-Hungary.
Probably school, though.
The city of
Seeing as
Przemysl
it's a
falls
summer
after
break.
a 4-month siege, netting the Russians 100,000 prisoners. Austria-Hungary's total losses now reach 2 million. Meanwhile, the British and French send warships to the Dardanelles to threaten Constantinople, capital of the Turkish
Yes, I
Ottoman
technically
Empire.
unlocked
They
immunity
believe
for
a show
this
of force
thing.
will quickly cause Turkey
No,
to
but
surrender.
this is the all Moki
They
has. It's
bombard
just
Turkish
poncho
shore
and no
forts
poncho.
in the narrow straits. But 3 battleships are sunk by mines.
I'm thinking
and
of
3 more damaged.
potentially
attack
for more
is
stuff when we
called
do like war, history of war or more battle games. When my Wi-Fi gets better, bigger like battle games, stuff like that. I am thinking of getting a little helmet commissioned as well, just a little battle
On
helmet
the
for when
Western
we're
Front,
doing
the
that
British
kind of
attack
stuff.
at Neuve-Chapelle. But the advance is soon halted by German barbed wire and machine guns.
Yeah, barbed wire and machine
British
guns was a
and
hell of
Indian
a
units suffer
combo back then.
11,000 casualties, about a
Real
quarter
fucking
of the attacking
devastating.
force.
Charging
6
through an
weeks
open
later, at the
field
Second
into
Battle of
barbed wire
Ypres,
machine gun
the
fire.
Germans attack with poison gas for the first time on the Western Front. A cloud of
That's right,
lethal
they did start
chlorine
using
forces
poison
Allied
gas
troops to abandon their
on that
trenches.
front.
But the Germans don't have enough reserves ready to exploit the advantage. Soldiers on both sides are quickly supplied with crude gas masks as a chemical weapons
I
arms
don't really
race
play
begins.
COD. I used to. I'm not a fan of it. Stuff like
The Allies land ground troops at Gallipoli.
if I can get my
including
thing
men
to
of the
connect to my
Australian
Xbox
and
again, I
New
could do
Zealand
stuff
Army
like
Corps, the
Viger,
Anzacs.
but most of the
Their goal is
battle
to
games
take
I like
out
to
the
play, I like to
shore
play more
forts that are
strategy
preventing
or
Allied
stuff like
warships reaching
Helldivers,
Constantinople.
where it's co-op and it's
But
just
they
this
immediately
big
meet
battle
fierce Turkish
where it's real
resistance
chaotic, stuff like
and are
that.
pinned down close to
But
the
yeah, I
shore.
prefer, even though I'm not the best of them, if
The
you've
day
seen any of
before
my
the
chess
landings,
streams,
the
I do
Ottoman
like
Empire
strategy
begins the
and
systematic
loot
deportation
and shoots
and
rather
murder
than just
of ethnic
COD where you go
Armenians
into battle
living within its
royales,
borders.
stuff like that.
The Armenians are a long persecuted ethnic and religious minority, suspected of supporting Turkey's enemies. Tens of thousands of men, women, and children are transported to the Syrian desert and left to die. In all, more than 1 million Armenians perish. The Allies condemn the events as a crime against humanity and civilization and promise to hold the perpetrators criminally responsible. To this day, the Turkish government disputes the death toll and that these events constituted a genocide.
No, I'm pretty sure it was a genocide. That's another thing I hate, like, that happens a lot in war, is you'll see some countries try to
On
hide,
the Eastern
parts
Front,
that
a
they
joint
did.
German-Austro-Hungarian
especially if
offensive
they
in
murdered a lot
Galicia
of
breaks
civilians.
through Russian defenses,
Every country's done it,
recapturing
and will
Przemysl
continue to
and
do it.
taking 100,000 prisoners. It is the beginning of a steady advance against Russian forces. At sea, the British passenger liner Lusitania, sailing from New York to Liverpool, is torpedoed by a German U-boat off the coast of Ireland.
You knew that
without
was going to
warning.
happen. They warned you they would bomb you if you went there.
1,198 passengers and crew perish, including
That
128
sucks, but come on now.
Americans.
Y'all knew that was going to happen. They said, come here and we'll
U.S.
shoot at you.
President Woodrow Wilson and the American public are outraged.
Yep.
But Germany insists the liner was a fair target, as the British used her to carry military supplies. In May, the Allies launched the Second Battle of Artois, in another effort to break through the German lines. The French make the main attack at Vimy Ridge, while the British launch supporting attacks at Aubert Ridge and Festubert.
Getting on a little bit of the
Allies
offensive.
sustain 130,000 casualties.
Look at that. Yeah, I'm just going to pause. So this is a road, and from that looks like some more houses and some houses here. Just that shows you how destructive trench warfare was, because it's a back and forth bombing a field for very little ground gained. So you can just see like the trees, these what were buildings. That looks right there like it was part of a fence as well. That's in part of a crater now. It just destroys the landscape. It absolutely turns it into nothing.
And advance just a few thousand yards.
Yep, just a few
That
yards.
summer, above the Western Front, the Fokker Eindecker helps Germany win control of the air.
Oh yeah,
It's
that's
one
when
of
we
the
start
first
getting
aircraft
airs
with a
with
machine
guns.
gun able
Yep.
to fire forward through its propeller, thanks to a new invention known as interrupter gear. Allied aircraft losses mount rapidly in what becomes known as the Fokker Scourge.
Yeah, that'll do it all right. I remember reading something about. I know I paused it a little late for that, but that aircraft. What was so great about it is before then, they'd have to mount the guns way out on top of the plane, or have the person actively shoot it by hand, so they wouldn't hit the propellers, which made it inaccurate, hard to shoot and fly, all that stuff. But with that invention from the Germans, they could place it in front of them without them having to manually shoot it by hand, because it would detect when the propellers were coming, it'd pause the fire and shoot in between the propellers without hitting them, and that turned into a major advantage in the sky until they could get it.
Italy, swayed by British and French promises of territorial gains at Austria-Hungary's expense, joins the Allies, declaring war on Austria-Hungary and later the Ottoman Empire and Germany. The Italian army makes its first assault against Austro-Hungarian positions along the Isonzo River, but is repulsed with heavy losses. Meanwhile, the Allies face a crisis on the Eastern Front. The Russians have begun a general retreat, abandoning Poland.
And there
German
goes
troops
Russia,
enter Warsaw on the 5th
losing
of
all of that
August.
again.
Tsar Nicholas II dismisses the Russian army's commander-in-chief, Grand Duke Nicholas, and takes personal command. It will prove disastrous for the Tsar, as he becomes more and more closely tied to Russian military defeat.
Ouch.
At Gallipoli, the Allies land reinforcements at Suvla
Yeah, it's not a good
Bay,
look for a
but
leader
neither
if you're
they
tied to a
nor
lot of
series of
defeats.
fresh attacks by the Anzacs can break the deadlock. Conditions for both sides are terrible. Troops are tormented not only by the enemy, but by heat, flies, and sickness.
That sounds miserable.
In the Atlantic, a German U-boat sinks the liner SS Arabic. 44 are lost, including
There
3
goes another.
Americans. In response to further US warnings, Germany ends all attacks on passenger ships.
Yeah, honestly, smart. That would have probably brought the U.S. into war even faster if they continue to attack passenger ships,
On
stuff
the
like that,
Western
with
Front,
Americans
the
in it.
Allies mount their biggest offensive of the war so far, designed to smash through the front and take pressure off their beleaguered Russian ally. The French attack in the Third Battle of Artois and Second Battle of Champagne. The British, with the help of poison gas, attack at Loos.
Yeah, poison gas was a big thing
Despite
on that
initial
trench
gains,
front right
the
there on
attacks
the
soon get
western
bogged
one.
down, with enormous losses on all sides.
Yeah. Hang on, let's see how many. French had a lot of casualties. Germany, British didn't have too much, but then again, they weren't. I'll put it like this: they were a major fighting force, but they weren't major in that area. It was still mostly French and German troops with some assistance from British. But yeah, no, that's a lot of casualties for that little bit of a land area.
Allied troops land at Salonika in Greece to open a new front against the Central Powers and bring aid to Serbia. But the Allies are too late. Bulgaria joins the Central Powers.
Dang.
And their joint offensive overruns Serbia.
Yeah, that's a lot for a small country like Serbia to deal with,
the remnants
land-wise.
of the Serbian army escape through the Albanian mountains. Their losses are horrific. By the end of the war, a third of Serbia's army has been killed. The highest proportion of any nation.
That's almost an entire generation.
Continues on the
That's basically an entire generation just gone right there. Even more than a little bit of a generation, depending on if they had I don't know if they were conscripted at the time, older ages, but that's if they did, and it was all ages like 18 and up to probably about 55, I believe it is that they'll do it. 1/3 of your army being completely lost is a humongous amount of backlash for generation growth. That's
Italian
a lot of people dead.
As Italian troops launched the third and fourth battles of the Isonzo. Austro-Hungarian forces, though outnumbered, are dug in on the high ground and impossible
to dislodge. Take my glasses off here for a second.
In the Middle East, a British advance on Baghdad is blocked by Turkish forces at the Battle of Ctesiphon, 25 miles south of the city. The British withdraw to Kut, where they are besieged. The Allies abandon the Gallipoli campaign. 83,000 troops are secretly evacuated without alerting Turkish forces. Not a man is lost. It's one of the best executed plans of the war.
Rome bought even more and came back.
250,000 casualties.
Could you rephrase that? Did you mean to say
is
loss?
A bad year for the Allies.
Also, I know, like, if you're saying loss, I know that it can come back. It's just, in general, though, that's still a decent setback, and that's a lot of people in your generation to be just completely wiped out. Because this is, Punic Wars, I don't know too much about them, but if you want to actually, I am going to be trying to stream for about 6 hours, so after we look a couple things up about World War One, I'm probably going to do World War II, but after that, if you can remind me, we can do the Punic Wars. Look some stuff about that, see if there's any good videos about them.
Losses for no tangible gains. But there is no talk of peace. Instead, all sides prepare for even bigger offensives in 1916, with new tactics developed from earlier failures. All sides still believe a decisive battlefield victory is within grasp.
All right, we're on year 3 now.
World War I was supposed to have been a short and glorious war. But by 1916, a new kind of industrialized warfare had seen the death toll soar into the millions, with no end in sight.
And another thing that's actually interesting is, like, while it was all industrialized, another reason we had such high casualties in World War I is stuff was meant to kill. Like, I'm not saying, of course, M4 stuff like that we have today can't kill you. But the bullets are smaller and they don't go quite at, they'll go all the way, they're more likely to go through because they're faster, some of them. But a lot of our guns today, like the ammunition we use, of course they can still kill you, but a lot of them are meant to more or less try to wound you to get you out the battle and 1 to 2 buddies to carry you back. Back then, they're like, get the biggest caliber bullets we can. If it was literally just a who could throw the most bodies at it with a better strategy. Because a good bit of the time, if you got hit like directly by one of these bullets back then, like an M1 Grand, stuff like that, they didn't have like vests, stuff like that. Odds are you were going down and you were not getting back up.
Naval blockades were beginning to cause shortages of food and fuel across Europe, while thousands of women had entered the workforce, replacing the men sent to fight in their millions. All sides were preparing for a long war.
Yep, now we're at the war of attrition. Part of it.
The war has raged for a year and a half as the Allies continue.
Oh no, it's only
to
been a year and a
battle the
half. I thought it was
Central Powers.
2014 it started. Oh yeah, that's right. It started around the middle of 2014 though. I was counting it as a full year though. Okay, so yeah, that makes sense. We're a year and a half in.
Joined by Bulgaria. At sea, the British maintain their naval blockade of Germany, preventing the import of food and other vital raw materials. Germany has retaliated with a U-boat blockade of Britain, but has to limit its attacks to avoid provoking the neutral USA, whose citizens have already been caught in the crossfire.
Yeah.
On the Western Front, French, British and Belgian troops are dug in opposite the Germans, both sides trapped in the bloody stalemate of trench warfare. On the Eastern Front, the Russians have ended their long retreat and stabilized the line, but their army has suffered huge losses.
Yeah, the Russians really did lose a lot of army.
Italian troops have launched a series of costly, unsuccessful attacks against strong Austro-Hungarian defenses. While on the Balkan front, the Central Powers have overrun Serbia, whose army is forced to make a bitter retreat through the Albanian mountains.
Yep, Albanian mountains killed a lot of them too.
On the 5th of January,
some.
Austro-Hungarian troops.
I'm not saying like a lot, they still lost a lot, it's just that cold going through that mountains.
But 3 weeks later, Montenegro is forced to surrender.
That didn't last too long.
On the Caucasus front, the Russians launch a surprise winter offensive against Ottoman Turkish forces. 6 weeks later, Russian troops occupy the city of Erzurum. In April, they capture the Black Sea port of Trebizond. Meanwhile, the British transport 2 motorboats to Lake Tanganyika in Africa. They finally arrive after a 10,000-mile trip by sea and land.
Damn, that's a long way.
And help the British seize control of the strategic lake from local German forces.
Yeah, that's true. That is actually a pretty good strategic area because you can control that entire lake.
German troops besieged on Mora Mountain for 18 months finally surrender to the Allies. It marks the end of the Cameroon campaign.
Okay, so we got Cameroon. No longer German control. Let's go. That's a win for the Allies there. Big win to take that.
On the Western Front, the Germans unleash a devastating assault on the French fortress town of Verdun. German General Erich von Falkenhayn knows France will defend this symbolic town to the last man.
Sorry about that.
His plan,
didn't get the best.
in his own words, is to bleed France white in its defense. It is the strategy.
I mean, it was effective, unfortunately.
Verdun becomes one of the most terrifying battles of the war. A mincing machine, where infantry divisions are destroyed almost as fast as they can be fed into the line. In Britain, 1 million men have already volunteered for military service. but the government realizes it won't be
Let's
enough.
actually look at what some of the, I actually want to pause here for a second because I want to look at some of the old propaganda they had to get people in. That one's honestly not too bad. I can't read this part under this. I'm guessing that's for the older crowds. But yeah, no, out of these three, honestly, the one that'd probably catch my attention the best is, I'm not gonna lie, it's this one. Because it feels more like it's actually speaking to you and it kind of like hypes you up a bit. It's like, hey, it's for you, and it's saying you're a fit man, stuff like that. Versus this, it's like an appeal to you, stuff like that. Give us a hand, old man, stuff like that. Just, yeah. But it's very interesting seeing old war propaganda and how they would recruit, stuff like that. Like you got Uncle Sam in the U.S.
British troops are the last to be issued with steel helmets. The nature of trench warfare produces a high proportion of head wounds. The German Stahlhelm, the French Adrian helmet, and the British Mark I steel helmet offer limited protection from shell splinters and shrapnel.
Damn.
Neutral Portugal has
So basically it's good for a bullet and that's about
which
it.
seems to offer the best chance of holding on to her African colony, Portuguese Angola. On the 9th of March, Germany retaliates by declaring war on Portugal. On the Eastern Front, Russia launches an attack near Lake Narok to relieve pressure on the French at Verdun, but it's a disaster. There are 100,000 Russian casualties, and the attack fails to divert any German
That's
troops
a
from
lot
the
of
fighting
loss
at
for
Verdun.
just absolutely nothing.
In Dublin, Irish Republicans launch an armed revolt against British rule. It becomes known as the Easter Rising, and is put down after 6 days of street fighting.
Huh. Alright. Got a revolt.
In the Middle East, after a 5-month siege, British forces at Kut surrender.
Oh, and Ducky, I
General
will say this
Townsend
now
leads
because I have
9,000
noticed this
British
being
and
a problem
Indian
that my
soldiers
laptop
into
has.
captivity.
Around
About
an hour
half
mark, the
later
stream
die
may
from
end for a couple
starvation or
minutes
disease.
and reset itself.
Britain
Because
wants
for some
Arab
unknown
support in its
reason,
fight
it has
against the
a
Ottoman
problem where it
Empire.
gets really
So
hot
it's promised Arab
around
leaders
then
an
on my
independent
computer,
Arab
so
state
it will
after the war.
actively cut itself off and then reset itself
But now, Britain
after
and
it's cooled
France
for like a
secretly
couple
signed the
minutes.
Sykes-Picot Agreement,
I am trying to keep my
planning
room
after
a
the war
bit
to
cool
divide the Middle
as
East
I fix
into
something
British and French zones of
to
control.
hopefully keep that from
Unaware
happening,
of this deal,
but I cannot make a
Hussein bin
guarantee
Ali,
that
Sharif of
stream will
Mecca,
not cut out
leads
for a
the
couple
Arabs
minutes
in
and then
revolt
start
against
back up
Turkish
as soon as I
Ottoman
have
rule.
it
In the
fixed.
Battle of Mecca, his forces seize control of the holy city. On
Actually, I
the
need to check
Italian
something in
front,
the background real fast.
Austro-Hungarian forces launch a surprise
Sorry if that's
attack at
popping up on your
Asiago.
screen.
Italian defenses give way.
Just want to check something.
Austro-Hungarian troops are poised to break
Yeah,
through
model's starting
into
to lag
northern
some,
Italy.
so we might have some issues here in a bit.
That month in the North Sea,
But we're good for
the
now.
German High Seas Fleet clashes with the
I'm going
British
to turn
Grand Fleet.
the
the
video
Battle
down
of
a
Jutland.
little bit more.
The only major naval battle of the war.
Turn
The
myself
British
up a little
suffer
more
heavy
as well.
losses, but claim victory as the German fleet withdraws and does not re-emerge from its base for the rest of the war.
Yeah. Yeah, I have it my actual laptop propped up on some stuff, so my laptop may struggle to actually capture the model now because the camera's off balance from what I'm used to, but it should expose the fan to some colder air, so hopefully that'll keep it from overheating as fast.
The Russians launch their attack first. On the Eastern Front, General Alexei Brusilov has carefully maintained the element of surprise. His troops break
So I didn't know
through
you
the
streamed
enemy
actually,
lines, in some places advancing
Ducky.
60 miles and taking
That's cool to know.
200,000 prisoners. This brilliant, though costly, Russian attack achieves its aim, as the Central Powers are forced to redeploy troops from other fronts to shore up the line.
Ah, smart move, Russia.
At sea,
Helping the Allies out by
British troops
drawing some fire
situated in
from
Russia,
them.
en route to Russia, hits a mine and sinks off
Got my
Orkney.
respect for that.
Among the 650 dead is Britain's iconic
We
Secretary
need
of State
you.
for War, Lord Kitchener.
Yeah. I'm
3
not gonna
days
lie, I
later,
still
in the
prefer Uncle
Adriatic,
Sam
Italian troopship Principe
stuff.
Uberto is sunk
Maybe
in
that's
the
just because
German
I
Sea.
am from America. But
It's the
yeah, Uncle
deadliest
Sam was
scene
very
of the war,
appealing
with
propaganda.
1,900 lives lost.
You know what? That's
On the
fair enough.
Western
The
Front,
emotes are
Britain
pretty
and
nice to
France
get. I might
launched their
actually
major
start
summer offensive
to get
at
some
the
because I have
Battle
some
of the
little
Somme,
drawings of Moki that
survive for a
could
breakthrough.
work. I just
The
gotta
first day was a
find, well, not
disaster.
find, but go to the artist
A
and
lot of
double check to
Allied
make sure they're
artillery
fine with me
bombardment
using them as
fails to knock
emotes.
out German defences, and waves of British infantry are cut down by machine gun fire as they advance into no man's land. In the space of a few hours, the British suffer 57,000 casualties, a third of them killed. It's the worst day in the history of the British Army. But more attacks are ordered, and the battle will rage for another 5 months.
Yep. It really was just a who can throw the most troops at it kind of war.
Encouraged by the Russian advance, Romania joins the Allies. But despite an initially successful advance into Transylvania, Romania quickly faces a counter-offensive from German, Bulgarian, and Austro-Hungarian forces. The Allied force at Salonika
Yeah,
tries
probably not
to
a good
support
spot
Romania
to
in
attack
launching
when
their
you're
own
kind of
offensive
surrounded
towards
on
Monastir.
3 fronts.
With Serbian troops in the lead, there are small gains, but dogged Bulgarian resistance prevents a breakthrough. On the Western Front, General von Falkenhayn finally calls
Oh
off the
man.
attack at Verdun. The French army has honored their commander General Nivelle's promise. Ils ne passeront
Ooh.
pas. They shall not pass.
Okay, that's
Victory
some
comes
good
at a terrible
propaganda right
price.
there. That's some good art
365,000
for some
casualties.
propaganda.
The Germans lose almost as many.
I will admit that though,
Verdun
some
remains one of the
propaganda art
bloodiest
hits
battles
hard.
in human history. For his defeat at Verdun, Falkenhayn is sacked, and Germany's heroes of the Eastern Front, von Hindenburg and Ludendorff, take command in the west. Meanwhile, the Battle of the Somme continues. Near the village of Flers, the British introduce a new weapon they hope can break the deadlock of the trenches. It is called the tank.
There we go.
Despite
Now we're
some
getting in
small
hand.
successes,
First
the first
tanks.
tanks are too
Tanks
few
were a
in number
nightmare on the
and too
battlefield when
prone
they
to
first came
mechanical
out.
failure to make any real impact.
Okay, they failed to make any real impact, it said. But let's be real. That was terrifying. Propaganda, yeah, no, propaganda will not get me into the army or anything like that, but I can admit that the propaganda art is some cool looking art sometimes. Some of it's not very good, but some of it's generally like, okay, that's actually kind of cool. I could see how if I was on the fence to go to war, something like this, especially back then when there wasn't like mass internet stuff like that, could get me into going to war for them.
Western Front, Russia's Brusilov offensive comes to an end. Casualty estimates vary wildly, but it's clear both sides have suffered catastrophic losses. Neither the Russian nor the Austro-Hungarian army ever fully recovers. On the Italian front, heavy fighting rages throughout the autumn, as Italian forces make repeated, costly assaults against Austro-Hungarian positions along the Isonzo River. The Battle of the Somme comes to an end amid autumn rain and mud. The Allies have
Yeah, no.
advanced 10 miles
the funniest tank I've seen, also, yeah, Ducky, I'm sorry, your stuff's coming through kind of late for me, but the funniest tank I've seen was it was the wheel tank or something like that. It was just a giant sphere with like this tiny little wheel in the back to control it. I'm gonna pause this for a second, but what's so funny about this tank was it was so bad because it just had a machine gun on it, or I think it was 3 machine guns you shoot from the sides and the front, but it was so poorly designed that any type of dip or hill that it had to go over would basically just knock this tank over or get it stuck because it was just basically this big solid sphere that the bullets would ricochet off of, but just this tiny wheel to actually help control it. So it's like, sure, you're safe in there for a while, but at the same time, you're stuck there now, and all they have to do is go behind you, and you're just kind of screwed now. You're just in a giant metal death trap waiting for someone to throw a grenade in. Oh, it is? That's what the tank is? Yeah, I forgot its name. That tank is the funniest tank in the world. God, I really wish I could see one in real life. I'm sure they have, hopefully, maybe one in a museum somewhere. Because, God, it would be so interesting to actually see one.
Germany will run out of men first.
Oh, shit.
Engulfs Romania as the country is overrun by the Central Powers. Romanian forces suffer 250,000 casualties. The remnants of its army take position alongside the Russians on the Eastern Front. That winter, Franz Joseph, Emperor of Austria since 1848, dies. He is succeeded by Karl. In Britain, Prime Minister Herbert Asquith is forced from office and succeeded by David Lloyd George.
Alright, so we have 2 new leaders.
Replaced as French Commander-in-Chief.
We have a lot of new leaders.
Who promises victory through bold, aggressive action. Amid the comings and goings, U.S. President Woodrow Wilson's attempts to mediate a peace settlement come to nothing. Neither side.
No, I know we're watching this, but at the same time, I can't help myself. We gotta go look at the tank. I just find that tank way too funny not to go look at it. It's the TARS tank. We're gonna take a little detour real quick, and we're gonna go look at some images of this tank real fast. Because, God, it was fun to see it. Let me make sure stream's actually picking up the right thing and you can see this real fast. Yeah, okay, y'all can see it loading. No. Because my laptop's hot and stuff right now, it's having trouble looking it up right now. But yeah, okay, here, we'll just look at it from here then. Yeah. Oh my God. TARS tank. Yeah. If I remember correct, there's another version of it, not like this one, but there's another one where was similar to this, but instead of just being a wheel, this entire thing was actually just a spear. Like it was just a giant ball with a little wheel coming out the back like this one. We made some weird tanks in World War I and II.
Is willing to make concessions. In 1916, World War I became a war of attrition. Both sides began to focus less on winning victory on the battlefield.
So I just realized they're putting a lot of the casualties on the side that I'm at. So I'm a real quick just move myself over here, so I'm hopefully not blocking as much now. Just don't want to move that. I want to move myself. Hopefully I'm out of the way now of... No? There's not really any spot to go down out of the way, unfortunately. We're just going to go back to my other spots.
So its leaders gamble. They resume unrestricted.
Yeah, that would be ominous getting that close to that thing, to be fair. I will give you that much.
Food imports by sea and starve the country into surrender within 6 months. But the new shoot-on-sight tactics mean neutral American ships will inevitably be caught in the crossfire, risking America joining the war on the Allied side.
Yep.
Just 2 days into the campaign, the SS Housatonic, an American steamer carrying wheat from Galveston, Texas,
What's going to happen?
is sunk by a U-boat.
Yep.
The British then pass to the US government a telegram they've intercepted.
Germany hooked up. That's what happens in the US. Y'all keep in these wars. They kept fucking around with America, and we kept coming into the war when they did that.
If America and Germany end up at war.
I don't know why they keep doing that shit. Just leave us be. If you don't want to upset a giant waiting to go to war, don't, you know, sink our ships and attack our people. It's really not that hard.
In Russia, enormous casualties and bread shortages lead to riots and revolution. The Tsar abdicates. A provisional government takes charge, pledging to continue the war. But at the front, Russian troops begin to desert en masse.
That's bad to have your troops desert on you.
Finally declares war on Germany.
Yep.
It brings immense resources to the Allied cause, but they will take many months to mobilize. And the German gamble of unrestricted submarine warfare may still pay off. April is the U-boat's most successful month of the war. They sink 886,000 tons of Allied shipping.
God, that's a lot.
17 ships a day, all packed with urgently needed
17 ships a day.
Britain will face starvation if the U-boats are not defeated soon.
That's a lot. 17 ships a day.
The British launched the Battle of Arras.
It actually makes me wonder how many ships might... I'm sure they have them still down there, wreckage-wise, but scavenge for the most part. I'm generally curious, with about 17 ships a day, how many ships are out here in this area? Stuff like that that you can actually go dive to. I can't actually dive thanks to something I have at my chest, but that generally would be amazing to go see.
A major upcoming French offensive. After heavy fighting, Canadian troops seize the high ground of Vimy Ridge. It's a limited Allied victory, but costs 150,000 Allied casualties to 130,000 German.
Damn.
Above the trenches, the First Air War has reached new levels of sophistication and
Oh.
deadliness. Reconnaissance aircraft are crucial for spotting enemy positions and directing artillery fire onto them.
Oh, this is when we start getting these.
Try to shoot them down before they can execute their mission. New models of aircraft are developed every few months.
Okay, but let's be honest, that's kind of funny what they did. It's the old-timey movies, it's just like dogfight, no sound, and then you can hear the machine gun going off slightly in the background of the video.
Leads to heavy Allied losses in what becomes known as Bloody April. Three days after the fall of Vimy Ridge, French General Robert Nivelle launches his main offensive. Expectations are high, but after initial success, the advance bogs down, and casualties quickly mount on both sides.
Also, sorry if I keep minimalizing it. I am actually checking on the side just to make sure stream is still going, because I know there's a delay in my actual thing saying to me it stopped. I just want to make sure that I'm actually seeing when it stops so I can pause the video so you don't miss a lot.
Replaced by General Pétain, hero of Verdun, who promises no more suicidal attacks.
Okay, that's fair. No more suicidal attacks. I'm just charging at Germans.
At Messines Ridge, the British tunnel under the German lines and detonate 19 enormous mines into the enemy position.
Wait, this is an actual video of it, I
It's
think?
the
Or is
largest
that a picture?
man-made
No, it's
explosion
just
in
a
history to
picture.
date, and paves the
Oh,
way to a brilliant
hold on though. Holy shit. Could you imagine like a German soldier just you're in a trench just sitting there, and then something so big that causes this goes off under your feet, or like just close enough to you where you don't get hit, but you see it? The amount of shaking and fear that those troops must have felt when that went off if it didn't hit them personally, but they were close to it. Good God, because that's the top. This is around the bottom, and here's a this little black dot is a guy standing in it.
highly
What
likely
the
British
fuck?
victory.
That is huge. And 19 of those.
In Greece, King Constantine, who has favoured neutrality, is forced to abdicate, and Greece joins the Allies.
Alright, we got some more allies.
Russia's provisional government orders a new attack, but the July offensive is a disaster. The morale and discipline of the Russian army has collapsed. It can no longer be relied on to fight, and the Central Powers' counterattack is almost unopposed. At sea, the Allies begin to group their merchant ships into convoys, which sail under naval escort.
Yep.
The new system leads to a steady fall in losses. The tide is turning in the U-boat war. As discontent
A fun
within
fact about U-boats. They actually at some point developed planes to deal with them that would basically drop a mine in the so let's say like a ship, or I believe at some point the planes also got it, would have a radar that would scan for where the U-boat is, and when it was seen, these planes would fly over them and drop this mine down and it'd sink down and blow up. Even if it didn't directly hit the ship, sometimes the just the pressure of the explosion was enough to mess with the U-boats, which is insane. But at the same time, really cool and interesting way to deal with them.
war grows in Germany, the German parliament, the Reichstag, passes a peace resolution, calling for a peace of understanding and reconciliation. It's ignored by the German High Command, which now effectively rules the country as a military dictatorship.
Yep.
In Belgium, the British launched their major offensive of 1917, the Third Battle of Ypres. It will be remembered as Passion.
Man, I don't know why I'm yawning so much today.
Heavy shelling, rain and broken irrigation channels turned the battlefield into a sea of mud. In these impossible conditions,
That's a lot of
troops
trench
of
foot and
breakthrough
athlete's foot
soon
there.
fade. The attack is called off after 3 months, by which point the British have suffered 240,000 casualties. The Germans, 200,000.
That's a lot of people. Could you imagine that though? Like, say you were one of those
On the
forgotten
Italian
soldiers
front,
during World War
at the
One,
11th
and your body
Battle
was
of
just left to
Dunkirk,
rot in mud
Italian and
as
Austro-Hungarian
your
forces
comrades
battle
around you
each
were
other
falling
to
left and
exhaustion.
right.
There are 150,000 Italian casualties, 100,000 Austro-Hungarian. That year,
Yep.
1917, the list of Allied nations grows. Brazil,
Yeah.
Liberia, China, and Siam all declare war on Germany as a result of German U-boat attacks, or to curry favour with the Allies. China will contribute many thousands of labourers working for the Allies in Europe, the Middle East, and Asia.
We're getting closer to the end of the war now, y'all.
That year
We
in
got
the
about
Middle East, British forces avenge their
10-ish
1916
minutes
humiliation
left.
at Kut by defeating the Ottoman Turks and marching on to occupy Baghdad. British forces in Egypt advance across the Sinai Desert. thrown back by Ottoman forces at the First and Second Battles of Gaza. In July, Arab rebels capture the strategic Ottoman port of Aqaba. They are accompanied by a British military advisor, Captain T.E. Lawrence, better known as Lawrence of Arabia.
I always found those little daggers cool that curve all the way up like that in those sheaths. I know it didn't actually do that, but still very cool
For the
looking.
creation of a national home for the Jews in Palestine. The aim is to rally Jewish support for the Allies, but the declaration contradicts existing pledges to Arab leaders.
Ooh, contradictions.
In October, the British finally win at Gaza, clearing the way for an advance into Palestine. 6 weeks later,
Okay.
General Allenby leads British troops into Jerusalem, ending 400
We will take the
years
Holy
of
Lands. God. School teaching about the Crusades and the memes about Jerusalem have ruined my mind on that. Anytime I hear the word Jerusalem, I just think of we will take Jerusalem, Deus Vult, over and over again in my head.
With Russian forces in disarray, Germany is able to move troops from the east to the Italian front.
Okay.
At the Battle of Caporetto, they helped to smash through the Italian army, advancing 70 miles and taking 250,000 prisoners. British and French divisions, desperately needed on the Western Front, have to be redeployed to shore up the line. In Russia, a second revolution brings Lenin's Bolshevik party to power. He is
Who is
determined
he
to end
again?
Russia's involvement in the war.
Okay, so he was against the war. He wanted to get
In
out of it.
France, Georges
But that
Clemenceau
answered my
becomes
question of who
Prime
he
Minister.
was.
Nicknamed the Tiger, he promises total war and total victory.
I mean,
For the
fair.
Allies in late 1917, final victory looks uncertain. Russia
Oh,
has stopped
that
fighting.
soldier, you can see he
The
was
French armies
blind
are
in one
recovering
eye.
from
The
mutiny.
other dude has to get carried.
The Italian front has almost collapsed, and American reinforcements still seem a long way off.
You know what? That's what we might actually do. After this, it's going to get a bit darker, but we are going to look at some actual footage from World War One. So I might actually change the broadcast of not just vulgar language. We might actually change it graphic depictions. Because yeah, right now we've just been looking at regular historical stuff, but this we're going to go look at some actual images, stuff like that from World War One, and look up how many casualties there actually was for each battle. So some of it's going to get a bit graphic for a little bit here in a minute.
Romania, isolated by the Russian collapse,
That much I am
signs an
warning you.
armistice with the Central Powers. 6 days later, Russia also signs an armistice. The Allied Eastern Front is no more.
Alright, so it's
has
chill
seen
there.
one major Allied power, Russia, knocked out of the war. But the arrival of a fresh new ally, America. Germany
Good old
knows
America.
only military victory can now save it from being overwhelmed by Allied resources, and begins planning one last massive onslaught for the spring of 1918.
3.5 years of war.
After 3.5 years of war, the Allies are in crisis. Russia has been rocked by revolution, and its new Bolshevik government has signed an armistice with the Central Powers. Thousands of German troops will be freed up to fight on the Western Front, where the carnage of trench warfare has already claimed more than 1 million lives. But Germany is also desperate. Britain's long naval blockade has led to shortages and social unrest at home. While America's entry into the war brings fresh manpower and vast resources to the Allied cause.
If the Allies didn't had screwed Germany. No, I still feel like World War II probably would have honestly happened, though if they weren't as screwed as much. I feel like it could have dragged on longer, or it could have been a lot more casualties, because Germany at the time would have probably had a bit more in their advantage, because they wouldn't have been as screwed, so they would have had a bit more money, stuff like that, that they could have actually fueled into war and research for war stuff. But no, I still 100% think that World War II probably would have happened, maybe later on, or either way, but it definitely still would have happened and probably been a bit worse if they weren't screwed over as bad as they were.
Germany faces inevitable defeat unless it can win a quick victory on the Western Front. US President Wilson announces his 14
And
points.
when I mean that, I mean, by the way, even if it wasn't like Germany that was it, someone was going to get screwed over during that war. So maybe it wouldn't have been Nazis. So maybe it could have been better, but someone would have probably definitely started World War II at some point. It was just a matter of time, really. It just like how it happened with World War II, though. It just happened to be Germany got screwed over the most because they were at war with the most people compared to just others being their allies. So that's why they got screwed over a bit harder, and why they also, in this case, thanks to Nazism and stuff like that through there, was able to take root a lot better, and it just spreaded it faster, basically.
They outline his vision for a post-war world, including an end to secret treaties, a reduction in the size of armed forces, self-determination for the people of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and an international organization to settle future disputes. But most European leaders dismiss his ideas as wishful thinking. At Brest-Litovsk, Bolshevik Russia signs a peace treaty with the Central Powers. Russia gives up vast amounts of territory in exchange for peace.
Damn, that's a lot of land.
500,000 German troops can now be redeployed from the east to the Western Front, where German General
That's a lot
Erich
more
Ludendorff
troops.
plans an all-out, last-ditch offensive to win the war. Ludendorff's spring offensive catches the Allies off guard. German stormtroopers using new infiltration
Oh yeah,
tactics
stormtroopers were
need to overwhelm
terrifying
the British Fifth Army,
in our war.
which is soon in full
Like,
retreat.
terrifying.
The German advance threatens to split the British and French armies, with disastrous consequences. So French General Ferdinand Foch is appointed Supreme Commander of Allied forces to coordinate strategy. Outside Amiens, British and Australian troops improvise a defense and finally halt the German advance.
There you go, Britain, Australia working
The
together.
German offensive switches to the north, targeting the Channel ports. But the British inflict heavy losses on the Germans and prevent a breakthrough.
The dawn of air power. Let's see what we get here, because I generally forgot what it was.
Above the trenches, the First Air War continues to escalate. Each side now has more than 3,000 aircraft in service on the Western Front. But by 1918, the Allies have won air superiority, thanks to greater resources.
Yeah. A lot more allies and resources to help them push
On the 21st
planes
of
out.
April, Germany's most famous pilot, Manfred von Richthofen, the Red Baron, is shot down and killed near Amiens.
Huh.
With 80 victories, he's the war's highest-scoring ace, and is buried by the Allies with full military honours.
Yeah, that is fair. Just like looking at as another soldier, and that is respectful of him because that's a lot of one aircraft victories. 80 back then was that's a good number. Even now, that's still a pretty decent number, especially when the person that you're fighting has basically the exact same thing as you.
Independent Bombing Force launches a daylight raid against Cologne. It marks the beginning of Britain's own strategic bombing campaign. On the ground, Ludendorff's offensive switches south, targeting the French. German troops advance 30 miles, but are halted at the River Marne, just as fresh American divisions enter the line.
Yeah, there comes America.
The US 1st Division is the first to see combat at the Battle of Cantigny. 3 days later, the US 2nd Division wins victory at the Battle of Belleau Wood. By now, there are nearly 1 million American soldiers in France, with 10,000 more arriving every day.
10,000 a day is wild.
The offensive leads to a 9-mile advance, but is finally halted by a French counterattack. In Italy, Austria-Hungary launches an attack at Asiago and the Piave River to support Ludendorff's offensive in France. But it's repulsed with heavy losses, and morale amongst the Austro-Hungarian army collapses.
Yep, there goes the morale. Yeah, once your army loses morale, it's basically over. Unless you can desperately find new troops fast, your army's not going to keep going very well.
It's the beginning of Allied intervention in Russia's civil war, on the side of so-called white or anti-Bolshevik forces. On the Western Front, the Germans' final attack is defeated in the Second Battle of the Marne. Ludendorff's offensive has cost the Germans more than 600,000 casualties.
600,000? That's a lot.
Germany's final gamble has failed.
You know, honestly, in the South, they weren't doing too bad. I really feel like if he just held the North and focused pushing South, that breakthrough might have actually had some superiority because they suffered a lot of casualties in the North and in the middle without a ton of land. But if they took that lower part, they could have had access to some water and probably pushed farther in.
The Allies now go on the attack. At the Battle of Amiens, British, Australian, Canadian and French troops, supported by tanks and aircraft, advance 7 miles in a single day.
Not bad. That's a decent little bit of land gained.
The 8th of August, the Black Day of the German army. German troops are exhausted, hungry and demoralized, and begin to surrender in their thousands.
Yep, as soon as your wheel is broken, soldier-wise, it's over.
100 days offensive. Trench warfare is over. The Germans are in full retreat.
Yep. And that is almost the end. That's when we start to push Germany back. Other things start to fall.
Breaks through Bulgarian positions. The overstretched Bulgarian army collapses, and 2 weeks later, Bulgaria signs an armistice.
Yep.
In the Middle East, British-led forces defeat the Turks at the Battle of Megiddo, taking 25,000 prisoners.
Oh.
Troops soon occupy Damascus and Aleppo. On the Western Front, Marshal Foch orders a general attack. British, French and American armies reach the Hindenburg Line, a line of reinforced German defences, and break through. Ludendorff informs the Kaiser that the military situation is hopeless and that Germany must seek an armistice.
Yep.
Germany sends a request to US President Woodrow Wilson, who in return demands German withdrawal from all occupied territory and the Kaiser's abdication. On the Italian front, the Allies deliver the final blow to Austria-Hungary at the Battle of Vittorio Veneto. The Austro-Hungarian army disintegrates and 300,000 prisoners are taken. With the Central Powers facing collapse, the Ottoman Empire signs an armistice with the Allies at Mudros.
I find that really interesting, though, like how as soon as you see Germany starts to break, all of its allies just start falling off. Like some of its bigger ones, stuff like that.
4 days later, Austria-Hungary signs an armistice with the Allies at Villa Giusti. At Kiel, the German High Seas Fleet is ordered to make a suicidal attack on the British Navy. But instead, it mutinies.
Yeah, that's fair. If I was told to make a suicidal attack against a war that we're already losing, with no superior gains, I'm definitely mutinying.
The Kaiser
Or doing a
abdicates,
mutiny.
and a German Republic is proclaimed.
Yep.
On the 11th of November 1918, a German delegation signs an armistice with the Allies inside Marshal Foch's railway carriage at Compiègne.
Huh.
It comes into force at 11 a.m.
Ooh, my laptop is burning up.
Last moment. American Private Henry Gunter is killed, charging a German machine gun at 10:59.
Oh,
He is thought to be the last soldier killed during World War at Compiègne. It
hang
comes
on.
into force at 11 a.m., but fighting continues until the last moment. American Private Henry Gunter.
Yeah, I remember that. There's like on the western front like area, there's like a couple places where like it was just a couple minutes till the war was over, and with this guy Henry being like the last one that actually went in to get shot. But yeah, it's sad when you think about it because there was a good few people. It was just a few minutes before they had to end that were getting shot.
Is killed, charging a German machine gun at 10:59. He is thought to be the last soldier killed during World War I.
Yep.
3 days later, in East Africa, German General von Lettow-Vorbeck surrenders his army on the Chambezi River. For 4 years, he has tied down huge numbers of Allied troops, remaining undefeated while cut off from home.
Huh.
He is still considered one of history's greatest guerrilla leaders.
I mean, yeah, I'll give him that. If you held that long by yourself, you're definitely probably the greatest. I believe this is the end of the video. Yeah, this is a like stuff it's going over. But yeah, no, let me move myself real quick so you can see it. But definitely go check out their channel, Epic History TV, and watch like the full stuff for yourself. Leave them like stuff like that because history is important and you should definitely know your history. So I really do suggest watching some of their other stuff, even if you want to rewatch this. But I remember there was a short film talking about some stuff. We're going to go to World War II though, because I'm pretty sure they also have a World War II history video full completion. So we're going to see if we can't get that to come up. We got a 7-hour one. That's a bit too much. Is this, this one has some art in it. What we thinking? We want to watch World War II stuff? Or do we want to go check out some World War One stuff? Like oh, my ear's down. But do we want to go like check out some World War One stuff like that? Right before they did the peace, I remember someone made a not cinematic, but a actual like little short movie of Henry and a couple others that were shot or just known to do something slightly before like the actual clock struck 11. We can look at some actual videos of what's happening, like some old World War One videos that we're taking, pictures, stuff like that. Or we can, like I said, we can jump straight into World War Two and start checking stuff out about that. Because I have been going for an hour 30 minutes so far, and I do want to try to cover as much of historical stuff as I can in 6 hours with these. Because I definitely want to get to both World Wars, so it's not like World War one out, like full stream basically, and then just another World War Two. So yeah, you know, yeah, we're just going to jump straight in. Yes. Water. Uh, water chat. What's that about, Ducky? That you're sending in chat real quick. I have the next video for World War Two just up in case that's what we do. But what's that about? That you put in chat. I'm gonna grab a drink and I'll again because I already drank all my water. I'm gonna grab a drink and then we're gonna come back. I'll read chat what you put. That is about if that is about something, and then if not, we'll hop into World War Two. So I'll be back again. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah. Oh, you were making sure I got water. Yeah, I was about to go get water. But yeah, I went grabbed me a 1 liter water bottle. I grabbed me some water or soda at the beginning, and about an hour 30 minutes in, my throat starts to get dry, so I tend to go get me some water bottle. All right. With that said, though, what you thinking, Ducky? Since you're currently the only one here, we thinking about going get some World War One stuff. Check out some more World War One stuff. Maybe like that video I was talking about if I can find it. Maybe some actual footage, or you think we should just hop into some World War Two stuff, the whole of World War Two. Also, we will actually be looking at it through the German perspective, by the way, because as much as I like want to look at the full war, we do see a lot from the Ally side, or just like overall, but I don't really see a ton going through the German side often. So I think that could be interesting to get to watch, is what it was like through the Germans. After that, we might also just do the war overall as well. All right, fair enough. In that case, we're going to look at. Yeah, we're going to look at some World War II through the German side, and then we're probably going to watch a full thing through just like regular World War. I do like that this is animated, though. It's a bit more engaging.
Special thanks to the sponsor of today's video, Men of War 2. As you may have
Oh,
heard,
sponsor
the
time from them.
anticipated sequel to the acclaimed Men of War RTS franchise is scheduled to release soon, and it features all new units, locations, campaigns, and game modes, combined with Men of War's trademark historical accuracy and action-packed gameplay on the eastern and western fronts of the Second World War.
I might actually go play this now. This actually sounds interesting.
The Allies, the Soviets, and the Third Reich, as well as the biggest multiplayer and co-op modes in franchise history. Choose your side, plan your battles, and prepare to fight against other players or side by side with them against an advanced AI in a vast selection of realistic skirmishes across 22 maps. From devastating
That actually
sights to
sounds cool.
incredibly accurate models of armament and military equipment, Men of War 2 features the most extensive and highly detailed Second World War locations, vehicles, and character roster in the series to date. 3 sides, 45 battalions, and over 300 vehicles. Men of War 2 also features full mod support. Create and share your own scenarios using a special level design and modding toolset. In fact, by using the link in the description, you can experience the game for yourself by signing up for an open beta that begins May 11th through the 15th. Try it out or wishlist your...
Obviously, y'all can see that real quick. But with that said, what was I going to do? Yeah. This video is by these guys. The Armchair Historian. I would recommend checking them out as well. Just in general, like the videos I show, please go show some love to the actual people that made them, because they had to actually, you know, research all this and put it together, especially like this one where you have to animate it. So do go show them some love.
Your copy of Men of War 2 right now. The speed and effectiveness of Nazi Germany's new war machine was demonstrated for the first time in full during their 1939 invasion of Poland. In planning for the invasion,
oh shoot, hang on. He's gonna put stuff in the corner that I moved to. So let me move myself to the other one. Come on. OBS, please let me move. And I'm a move. No, do not move him. Move me. We're gonna move me over here, and I'm actually gonna make myself a bit smaller so I'm not blocking too much. Okay, and that's... Y'all are missing a lot actually, so I'm gonna close it some. There we go. Now y'all can... I didn't realize how much was actually hidden. Now y'all can see everything pretty good though. Yeah, that's about everything showing. So now y'all can see the facts. Hopefully he doesn't switch over to the side I'm on now. And I'm gonna move down a bit more. No, don't move the history again. Move myself. There we go. Like this, I should be out the way of the actual video for the most part.
Hitler and German High Command, the OKW, was the looming threat of France on their western border. Dividing their forces and engaging in a two-front war was out of the question, so German planners concluded that they could only hope to win by destroying the Polish army as rapidly as possible before turning all of their attention west. To achieve this, the OKW relied on the Prussian strategy of decisive maneuver, which aimed for rapid surprise attacks followed by encirclements of retreating enemies. This proven tactic was supported by new ideas about mechanized warfare developed during the interwar period. Most importantly, the concept of the Panzer Division. While most armies at the time employed tanks primarily as support for their infantry, the Wehrmacht concentrated their armored units into separate divisions.
That's actually cool to know that the most were just support, but they said, let's make our own division.
The use of these Panzer divisions as fast-moving armored spearheads would later form the strategy that we now call Blitzkrieg. But at the time, it was less of a distinct idea and more of a continuation of a tried-and-true Prussian doctrine. While
Huh.
armored units were very effective during the invasion of Poland, punching through enemy lines with the help of infantry and Luftwaffe dive bombers, their presence was far from the decisive factor in the campaign's success. Out of the 53 divisions in the German invasion force, only 6 were panzer divisions,
Oh.
while another 4 were motorized. The vast majority of the fighting in Poland was done by conventional infantry.
Okay, so it was mostly still just infantry. The Panzers just get a lot of love because, well, I'll admit it's pretty badass. A division of tanks rolling up onto the battlefield with infantry behind them. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm gonna be honest. I can't lie.
Brilliant tactics, the Wehrmacht's greatest advantage in its first campaign was arguably the strategic weakness of the Polish army. Diplomatic meddling and false promise from their Western allies had interfered with their mobilization, leaving Polish forces deployed in a thin line too close to their long border with Germany and Slovakia. This left the Poles especially vulnerable to flanking and encirclement, and by the time the Soviets invaded from the east, the fate of Poland was sealed. In less than a month, the Polish military had been crushed between the armies of Germany and the Soviet Union, and the government had been forced into exile. In April of the following year, the Germans set their sights on Denmark and Norway in order to deny the British.
So wait, hang on. It took my brain a second to do that. So they exiled the government leaders? I might have misheard that. I probably did, and I'm probably sounding like an idiot now. But I'm gonna roll with it. That's actually something I didn't know. That's a cool little fact.
Secure their iron ore supply from neutral Sweden, and gain access to Norwegian heavy water facilities. The invasion of Denmark was met with almost no resistance, and was over in less than 6 hours, making it by far the fastest campaign Germany would ever complete. Norway did not fare much better. While the panzer divisions played a relatively minor part in the Polish campaign, the invasion of Norway would see these new armored tactics take on a very different role, specifically a more consistent one, as the campaign did not involve any
and down he goes
Instead,
into the water.
The conquest of Norway was accomplished through an amphibious assault utilizing naval, air, airborne, and ground forces in a coordinated, well-timed surprise attack. To minimize their disadvantages against the Royal Navy, the Germans planned the operation during April, when harsh weather on the North Sea would hinder enemy ships and reduce visibility, giving their invasion forces a better chance to safely reach their targets.
That's actually smart.
Held off the Royal Navy at sea. Infantry units captured several key ports, while paratroopers were deployed to seize key airfields. This sudden and decisive attack caught the Norwegians and their allies off guard.
That's actually not a bad strategy that they did.
The Norwegian army would capitulate. The nation's capital and most of its major cities fell to the Germans' amphibious invasion within the first 24 hours. The invasion of Norway was not the only important role that the Kriegsmarine played during the first 2 years of the war. Although Germany was blockaded immediately after the war started, the Germans also simultaneously began their convoy raiding campaign. U-30, for example, sank the British ocean liner SS Athena mere hours after the war declaration.
Okay, so Germany was popping off like hours within the war starting. They planned this stuff fast. Well, not planned fast, but they did this fast.
Modern aircraft carrier was almost sunk 2 weeks after the war declaration, and another British carrier, the HMS Courageous, would actually be sunk 3 days later. German submarines would even infiltrate the British base at Scapa Flow and sink a battleship, the HMS Royal Oak. With the adoption of Wolfpack tactics, the U-boat fleet had immense success, sinking millions of tons of shipping. Even surface raiders like the Admiral Hipper and the Admiral Scheer had success attacking British convoys. This period of early success would be nicknamed the Happy Time by German sailors.
Alright.
A month after the invasion of Norway, the Germans finally ended the 8-month phony war by launching their western offensive into the Benelux.
Kind of odd to name yourself Happy Times for blowing up a bunch of ships and a lot of people dying, but I mean, I guess for the Germans in this case, within a couple weeks, basically setting up those wolf pack tactics and just destroying all that stuff so safely compared to the casualties they were taking right at the beginning of the war. Think about it, I guess I can kind of see why they would call it the happy times for themselves.
And France. The German plan relied heavily on fast-moving armored and motorized units to exploit weakness in the Allied defenses. On May 10th, the German army launched a surprise attack on the neutral countries of the Benelux. Overwhelming force, combined with daring airborne assaults, quickly managed to break the back of the Dutch army, while the Belgians,
Ouch.
supported by both France and Britain, buckled in the face of Hitler's finest panzer formations. Rather than attacking the enemy head-on, fast-moving German units outmaneuvered their Allied counterparts to cut off their supply lines and disrupt reinforcements.
So it was really just about speed with Germany in the beginning.
The Maginot Line and encircling the British expeditionary forces around Dunkirk. The British were only spared from disaster by a daring evacuation.
Yeah, I remember that.
The close support of the Luftwaffe.
Actually, if I remember correct, I don't even I may be wrong, but if I remember correct, the actual retreat that they did, I don't remember if it was even an actual military boats. I think some of them were, but I also think it was just like fishers, stuff like that, fishermen that were nearby that were brave enough to go in and help them, if I remember correct. I might be wrong on that, but I can swear for the life of me, I remember that it was like some military, but they couldn't get them. Also, some like fishers and boats, stuff like that, also helped get some people out.
Forces were able to wreak havoc on Allied logistics with devastating results. The Germans also took advantage of the fact that the French deployed their tanks evenly across the front line, which allowed them to mass their panzers into concentrated attacks. A great number of France's dreaded Char B-1 battle tanks, in many ways superior to contemporary German tanks, wound up being abandoned across the battlefield after running out of fuel, with their impressive armor barely scratched. German logistics, on the other hand, functioned very smoothly, with a report from Panzer Group Kleist asserting that there was not a single supply crisis that his group was unable to resolve. This was in large part thanks to France's infrastructure, which included a large quantity of gas stations. The steady supply of fuel allowed the panzer divisions to race ahead and attempt far-ranging encirclement maneuvers that would ultimately play a major role in the rapid destruction of the French army.
So they basically bullied the French with their own gas. Since the French had gas stations, I'm guessing from what I got from that, I might be wrong, they basically just said, forget you, we're going to cut you off from your supplies and then use your gas stations and gas depots to say it's ours now.
During the Western Offensive were absolutely critical for continuing their fast-paced armored maneuvers. Without them,
I like that they have this set up like this.
Could not be sustained. After Dunkirk, it only took the Germans 3 more weeks to conquer the rest of France. The fall of France also had the added benefit of providing the Germans with Atlantic naval bases, which would contribute to the success of their U-boat fleets. Meanwhile, the Germans would establish
not nice, but
in the south.
good strategy is what I should be saying.
Cemented a popular image of the Wehrmacht as an unstoppable machine, capable of rolling over its enemies with overwhelming speed and strength.
That's a huge-ass tank. What the hell?
By the notion of their invincibility, despite the fact that it was blatantly false. Fascists in Italy looked on with envy and trepidation. Mussolini feared being sidelined by Hitler, and thus had thrust his forces into the Battle of France, leading to war with the British Empire. December of 1940 would see the Italians spectacularly fail on the field, losing 3 ships at Taranto and swaths of Italian Libya to the British by February 1941.
Bro got scared he'd get sidelined and then got his ass handed to him to do so.
Where Il Duce's half-baked invasion of Greece had turned into a rout of epic proportions, with the Greeks not only pushing the Italians out of their country, but following them into Italian-occupied Albania.
the Italians really said, I don't want to be on the sideline, so let me go get my ass whooped real fast. So I'm not on the sideline. I'm just known as a loser in these parts.
The British soon
That's an
allied
owl.
with the ascendant Greeks, and the Italians found themselves brutalized by the Tommies on one side.
Oh, shoot. I have a touchscreen. I just realized I accidentally touched my screen.
Could not the Italians out of their country, but
Oh, that's
fled
close
them
enough.
into
That's close enough
Italian-occupied
to where we
Albania.
were.
The British soon allied with the ascendant Greeks, and the Italians found themselves brutalized by the Tommies on one side and the Hellenics on the other. Italy's attempts at conquest had turned into a dumpster fire, and Hitler feared the blaze would spread.
Yep.
His worry exploded into outright fury when Yugoslavia reluctantly joined the Axis powers, only to implode into an anti-fascist coup that the Führer took as a personal affront. Rolling up their sleeves and dragging the Italians and Hungarians along with them, the Germans swept into Yugoslavia in a blowout invasion, subjugating the rogue Axis ally in less than a month. Meanwhile, other German troops trudged into Greece, bailing out the beleaguered Italians and conquering the entire country. The British sent an expeditionary force.
Germany knows what they're doing. They just pick bad allies. That, and they picked bad people to go against as well, rather than make friends with. Basically, Germany's just, especially in World War II, with their really radical and not so lovely ideals was bad, but they also always picked pretty shit allies and got pretty shit allies. Germany though itself so far seems to have a pretty good record battle wise in from what I've seen in World War One and Two. They caused some pretty decent casualties, and they were very decisive and fast so far, it seems, in the beginning of World War Two. I mean, in World War One, they were pretty good compared to their allies as well.
Italian hangers-on. The Allies withdrew to Crete, trying to make the island a Mediterranean stronghold, but the German Fallschirmjäger cracked the defense on May 20th, 1941, in a historic but Pyrrhic victory. The German triumph at Crete was a costly affair, to the point that General Kurt Student, who commanded the Fallschirmjägers, would dub Crete the graveyard of the German paratroopers.
That's a lot.
Had truly saved Italy's pancetta, but even as the dust of battle settled, there were some in Germany who questioned the wisdom of coming to Mussolini's rescue.
And there's Hitler.
Leni Riefenstahl, the Nazi propagandist, influential filmmaker, and close friend of Hitler, recalled the Führer stewing over the possibility that, if the Italians hadn't attacked Greece and needed our help, the war would have taken a different course. We could have anticipated the Russian cold by weeks and conquered Leningrad and Moscow. There could have been no Stalingrad. Hitler's assessment of Operation Barbarossa is disputed by modern historians. Richard Hooker Jr., a U.S. Army analyst, argues that the delayed timetable did not prevent the troops from advancing to Moscow between late June and mid-August, especially given their morale was at an all-time high following the victories in Yugoslavia and Greece. David Glantz, a military history professor, believes that Germany's Balkan campaign actually helped Barbarossa by discrediting Soviet intelligence reports of an imminent invasion. However, the popular belief is that Germany's support of Italy hindered Barbarossa, resulting in the first of many defeats for the Third Reich.
Okay, so basically, it didn't actually slow him down. It didn't do any of that. It just so happened that Hitler and a lot of people believe it, but according to professionals, it didn't. Okay.
The answer to this eternal question may never be found, lost in the fog of history.
Yeah. I guess, like he said, it's lost in the fog of history. We'll never know fully for a while. We're sure we'll figure it out truly 100% at some point.
From Romania, Hungary, and Finland saw the Axis make their typical quick gains and seize much territory, even as Hitler constantly changed their strategic goals. But the invasion hit a major stumbling block at the First Battle of Smolensk, which left the triumphant Army Group Center severely debilitated. High Command elected to order the center to hold and diverted other forces to reinforce the push into Ukraine and against Leningrad. Kiev would soon fall, and the Axis spent the ensuing months fighting their way to victory across the USSR, except for
Fair
the
enough.
grinding sieges at Leningrad and Sevastopol. Buoyed by their success, the Axis made a rush for Moscow, only to grind to a halt just outside the capital's suburbs. Burned out from their rapid advance, bloodied by dogged Soviet resistance, and with the Soviets gearing up for a counteroffensive, the Axis could do nothing but wait for the Communists' response, a response that would throw the Germans back from Moscow, even as they held on to their other conquests.
They pushed back hard.
But as the Germans licked their wounds, a new foe was brought into the war. The bombing of Pearl Harbor saw the United States declare war on the Empire of Japan. And
that's when they really effed up, is when U.S. got in.
Soon thereafter. Germany was well
because more troops against you.
Closer to the edge. Due to the logistical issues, mostly lack of oil, the Germans could only focus on one army group for their 1942 offensive. Hitler and his generals began planning for the next phase of their offensive against the Soviet Union, aiming south with an eye toward seizing the Reds' oil fields. During a planning session, Hitler grimly informed the commanders of Army Group South that, if I do not get the oil of Maikop and Grozny, then I must end this war. Their rush into the USSR had well and truly stretched the Germans thin, and the Nazi summer offensive, including the Battle of Stalingrad, represented a desperate Hail Mary. If the Nazis
they really were throwing a Hail Mary for this, for some oil.
Retain the initiative and grind the hated communists into the dust. But desperation bred underpreparedness, and the soldiers who marched to capture the oil were neither ready for the mountainous terrain nor equipped for winter fighting.
That's gonna hurt, not being ready for not ready for winter.
Encircled by a Soviet counterattack that wiped out the 6th Army. Army Group South was ultimately forced back into Ukraine by the Soviets, with the Germans in the Caucasus barely managing an escape. During Operation
Looks like the 7th stuck under there.
Finger-pointing, with General Franz Halder, the chief of staff, blaming the diversion of troops to the Ukraine for the inability to capture Moscow. However, Halder's argument neglected the fact that Napoleon was able to occupy Moscow during his own invasion of Russia, and history may have repeated itself had the Wehrmacht reached the city. So, this was not a Napoleonic war of conquest, but a war of annihilation. The Soviets had to be exterminated, their land and resources claimed for Nazi Germany. Hitler, in many regards, picked the worst possible fight. He chose to throw his men against a cornered animal with unbelievable reserves of manpower and industrial capacity.
Yeah, that is true.
Were mauled. It is February 1943. The cracks are beginning to show on the Eastern Front. The Battle of Stalingrad ending with both the Soviets and Nazis battled. But the Soviets can weather the beating. The retreat is draining Germany's oil. The Soviets are draining Germany's manpower. And the privations of war are draining Germany's hope. Joseph Goebbels, infamous minister of propaganda and the man who convinced a nation that millions of innocents just had to die, takes to the podium to sell the German people on the words emblazoned on
glasses are dirty.
Totaler Krieg, total war.
Total war. It appears only one of my eyes want to blink. I guess I don't need to blink one of my eyes. I never actually heard any of the German speeches translated before. I'm actually kind of glad that they translated at the bottom so I can read for once what they were saying.
Whether the people were willing to follow or not, Totaler Krieg wouldn't save the Third Reich. The failure of Operation Fallblau, or Case Blue, was a major contributor to the eventual Axis defeat on the Eastern Front. Although many will argue that the invasion of the Soviet Union, Operation Barbarossa, was doomed from the start. Launched in June of 1942, Case Blue was an attempt to simultaneously cut off Soviet access to resupply from the Black Sea and capture the oil fields located in the Caucasus. The oil wells of Baku were of paramount importance, as Germany had exhausted its pre-war petroleum reserves.
Yep.
Yet, ironically, the operation designed to address this shortage only exacerbated it, as the marathon drive toward Caucasia
That's bad
and the
for them.
scorched earth defense by Soviet forces stretched already fragile fuel lines, leaving their offensives in the east all but dead in the water.
Yep.
Case Blue culminated in the Battle of Stalingrad, which marked the deepest penetration of Nazi troops into the Soviet Union. But although they inflicted grievous losses on the Red Army, the offensive was ultimately turned back, along with practically all of the momentum on the Eastern Front. Germany
And
went
down
into the
goes that
Caucasus
entire
for
division.
oil and triumph, but left with empty tanks and full graveyards. As bad as this situation was, Nazi officials had reason for some confidence. The Allied raid at Dieppe, France, in August of 1942 was an embarrassing failure and a windfall for the German propaganda ministry, indicating that the Allies lacked the expertise to launch an amphibious invasion of Europe. The Luftwaffe also regularly inflicted heavy casualties on Allied bomber sorties, giving hope that they could still win the war in the air in the long term. This optimism was strengthened with the knowledge that cutting-edge jet fighters like the Me-262 might enter production within a year.
Good to know. So they were really relying on air
But these
when they
dreams
couldn't get
became
oil.
increasingly far-fetched, as Germany's answer to its logistical challenges was the creation of ever more complex Wunderwaffe, or wonder weapons, that created more of the same challenges. V-2 rocket
I saw a
systems
video
to
under
raise
this of their
boy
wonder
tower and
weapons. We'll
petrol
watch that
blasters,
next.
STG-44s that would influence modern assault rifles, mouse tanks to grind the Judeo-Bolsheviks into dust, and other incredible inventions that were largely either too expensive, ineffective, or impractical. Fuel was a constant concern, with the Wehrmacht juggling supplies of petrol and synthetic gas to power its desperate operations. Far more sinisterly, the Germans relied on slave labor from concentration camp inmates, who suffered both from the malice of their oppressors as well as industrial accidents.
So a lot of losses and relying on stuff.
Armaments minister and the man with his
They were
hands
really
in the
going off
loafers
of just,
German industry
I believe we can do
played the
this.
challenging game of the floor is lava economic edition.
Ooh, how we play
State
this?
Secretary in the German Finance Ministry reportedly said the contributions that have been allocated to paying off the interest and principal on the national debt must henceforth be covered by current revenues earned from the economic exploitation of the Eastern Territories. This economic exploitation, one of the many schemes designed to remedy Germany's
Up
excessive
and down he
spending,
goes.
paradoxically worsened the German economic condition.
Well, goodbye, sir.
Because the scheme was falsely predicated on a quick and decisive military conquest. But Hitler and his advisors hardly concerned themselves with these practical considerations. They had Nazi ideology, which elevated
Good
war to
vibes
an
only.
apocalyptic struggle between the superior Aryan race and the Untermensch, who stood between them and the mastery of Europe. Early success in Poland and
Bro
France
really liked
taught
white
the
people
Nazi
with
Party that shortcomings
blonde
in
hair and
strategy
blue
or
eyes. That's his thing.
logistics could be overcome.
Actually, fun little side fact: he legitimately had an entire program of people that had the traits that he liked, where they go. I forget where it is. There's like this camp. I'll call it a camp. Normally, when you think of Germany and hear camp in World War II, it's not a good one. But this was a good-ish one. I guess you can say in that people weren't murdered there, but basically, if you had the traits that he liked and you volunteer for it, you'd go there. You'd be safe from the war, and basically, you just have kids with people that had similar traits to you. So blue eyes, blonde hair, white skin, stuff like that.
Raw Germanic prowess, encouraging blind belief in Nazi supremacy and downplaying objective analysis of defeats or strategic blunders. After all, as Hitler said regarding Operation Barbarossa, all the Germans had to do was kick the door in and the entire structure would come crashing down. That they kept having to find more doors to kick was another matter. Even after the failure of Case Blue, Hitler tried to keep the army on an offensive footing, but his plans were constantly postponed. Meanwhile, Soviet winter counteroffensives made inroads on Nazi-held territory, forming a salient around the city of Kursk. With summer approaching, Hitler authorized Operation Citadel.
Operation Citadel.
This salient by Army Group Center and Army Group South.
So they try and cut them off.
It's often considered one of the largest tank battles in history. The Luftwaffe and Panzer divisions exhausting themselves, trying to break through the Soviet defenses and envelop the salient. Yet this salient,
I'm guessing a lot of tanks were lost.
And Operation Citadel represented everything wrong with the German war effort. It was a reactionary move based on vague strategic goals that, even if successful, would merely delay the inevitable.
Yeah.
After the failure at Kursk, the German disposition would permanently shift to the defensive. Even so, German morale endured the disaster at Kursk, and the Wehrmacht remained an effective fighting force throughout 1943. This was primarily due to the efforts of men like Walter Model and Albert Kesselring, who effectively transitioned the German army to a defensive posture.
So they basically helped the war continue by getting it defensive rather than pushing randomly into places for vague stuff.
Up to 3 million Soviet soldiers at the Ostwall in August, the Red Army was unable to cross the Dnieper for nearly 3 months. Meanwhile, in the West, the Allied invasion of Italy was brought to a standstill at the Gustav Line in December. As winter set in, Hitler hoped that Germany could hold out until the unholy alliance between the capitalist Western Allies and the communist USSR collapsed under its own ideological weight. Unfortunately for Germany, reality finally came knocking on Hitler's door in June of 1940.
Well, that's something I wasn't expecting to animate.
Aus ihren Schiffen wird sich eine Welle von Männern und Stahl auf unsere Strände ergießen und wir müssen darauf vorbereitet sein. Wir haben Minen, wir haben Panzersperren, wir haben den gesamten Strand aufgeklärt. Wenn wir doch nur die Panzerreserven hätten. Ob in Calais oder hier in der Normandie, es steht dasselbe auf dem Spiel. Das Schicksal Deutschlands hängt vom Ausgang der ersten 24 Stunden der Landung ab. Für die Alliierten als auch für Deutschland wird es der längste Tag werden.
Okay. I heard the quote.
Did not take the Germans completely by surprise. On the contrary, the highest echelons of German command were well aware
So they really wanted that
was
post.
imminent and of the least possible threat. The Führer was confident that the Atlantic Wall, stretching from the border of Spain to Norway, would not only repulse any Allied landing, but cause so many Commonwealth and American casualties that the Western Allies would lose their capacity to continue the war. Fritz Bayerlein, a senior aide to Erwin Rommel in Africa and later commander of the Panzer Lehr Division at Normandy, held the debacle at Dieppe up as incontrovertible proof the Allies could not manage an amphibious assault. The series of successful Allied amphibious landings in Italy gave even Hitler pause, however, and he placed Rommel in charge of shoring up the defenses along the English Channel. Rommel's task was an inevitable one. Concrete was at a premium, with the lion's share of Germany's supply going to the construction of hardened U-boat shelters per Hitler's direct orders. French laborers and Italian POWs were conscripted to improve the defenses. Turrets from captured French tanks were made into makeshift emplacements named Tobruk's after
Anyway, they straight up said, we're taking your tank top and making it into a turret for our naval base. Or our wall against. You know what? No, I can't say anything though. That's actually pretty smart.
a jury-rigged reinforced firing pit Italian soldiers had built with buried cement pipes in North Africa, and extensive minefields were laid. Perhaps Rommel's most ingenious inventions were the Rommelspargel, or Rommel's asparagus. Webs of metal wire strung along fields of short poles meant to shred gliders as they tried to land, alongside anti-ship mines placed into the beaches atop angled poles driven into the sand. But static defenses were only part of Rommel's strategy. Hitler and the High Command had become convinced the Allies would land at the easy-to-reach Pas de Calais. Operatives confirmed this
But we ended up
often,
getting
followed
some
through
troops
the
laying the
Allied
gear.
deception operation,
They weren't ready
Operation
for that.
Fortitude. Rommel, for his part,
Yep.
began to shift his view toward an Allied landing at Normandy. The beaches were similar to the Italian shore, and the Allies would want to maximize their chances of success by striking on familiar ground. Regardless of where the Allies came, Rommel argued that the only way to beat them back was through defensive action on the beaches, meeting the Allies as they landed and denying them the opportunity to take even a centimeter of ground. Given the quality of the troops defending Normandy, this was far easier planned than executed. Normandy was the responsibility of the 7th Army, whose units in the area were, to put it mildly, of mixed quality.
Yeah, I don't know their uniform. They look decent enough. Then you got your bunch of bloody guys, and then you just have common civilians.
Promising recruits were siphoned off by SS, Fallschirmjäger, or Panzer recruiters, leaving a contingent of unfit or unremarkable men. Among the defenders of Normandy were the so-called ear and stomach battalions, composed of soldiers convalescing from combat wounds to their abdomens, or who were experiencing hearing loss, and Osttruppen, foreign auxiliaries from conquered lands.
So they're basically the weakest and worst troops possible that they decide to... Okay, can we talk about that strategy-wise? Why would you put your worst troops possible as your defense of an entire beach that you know your enemy's coming from? Damn. Not very smart.
Highly ineffective, with many deserting to join the French resistance or surrendering to the Allies at the first opportunity. The few capable soldiers either suffered from endemic fatalism, such as Captain Eberhard Wegemann of the 21st Panzer Division, who commented, "We were well aware that neither our men nor our tanks were good enough, or were almost fanatically prepared to meet their foes." This attitude was usually evinced by the younger SS troops.
The more you know. The fateful morning, D-Day, Decision Day.
As June 5th crept into June 6th, the Kriegsmarine pulled patrols from the English Channel. German meteorologists had declared the weather unsuitable for an invasion through June 10th. There was, scientifically speaking, no chance of a landing. Rommel took these assurances as an opportunity to go on leave, returning to Germany to celebrate his wife's birthday and arrange an audience with Hitler to request additional panzers along the wall. Friedrich Dollmann, commander of the 7th Army, ordered a command post drill for his officers on June 6th. The evening was shaping up to be a quiet affair, and the Germans began preparing for the next day's routine, until Allied bombs began falling. This itself was not unusual, as the Allies had launched near continuous runs against the Germans for some time. But this raid was an overture to Operation Overlord. As sentries fought off sleep, gliders began to make silent landings. As officers crawled into bed, paratroopers began to descend to Earth. Bewildered German commanders found enemies literally raining down on their heads and desperately rang to their superiors or assembled cells of ad hoc resistance.
Too late for that. Oh, perfect timing. As soon as I said that, he got shot.
711th Infantry Division recalled a night of drinking in the officers' mess, ending in combat. The
So they started
inebriated
fighting
officer,
each other as
pistol in
well.
hand, stumbled out into the night to find British paratroopers raining down on the 711th's command post. Reichert and his men were able to fend off the assault, and the still drunk general desperately rang to his superiors to announce the beginning of the Allied invasion. In the American landing zones, Lieutenant
got
General
sloppy.
Wilhelm Fahly, commander of the 91st
Well, they've been
Foot
sloppy
Bomber
for a while
Division,
now,
was
if you look
ambushed
at how
and
they've been
killed by
fighting.
the 82nd Airborne just behind his headquarters near Saulmais-Iglay. Other Germans proved less willing to give battle. Rainer Hartmetz, a soldier serving near Normandy, rushed to his command post to find his officers gripped by battle shock. Two men were simply catatonic, while Reiner's company commander was sprawled drunkenly in a foxhole. Every time a runner brought news from the front line, the commander would idly threaten to execute anyone who returned to the scene of the action.
So basically told him to stay here.
The Normandy coast, the Germans were shocked to see an Allied armada steaming toward them. With no naval forces to challenge them, the Allied landing craft and their escorts took up their positions in
It's insane to think that they got so sloppy so fast with their like strategies. Like, it was going real good in France for them, but after that it just all went to hell. Alright, so I'm guessing we're going to hear some stories from Germans.
Omaha Beach caught German shore batteries in the middle of preparing for gunnery practice, turning what should have been a morning of plinking in the Atlantic into a scramble for survival. Weathering this bombardment was the 716th Static Infantry Division, a unit of notoriously low quality. Composed of decrepit or boyish conscripts and ill-motivated Osttruppen, the division was denied the usual allotment of artillery and heavy vehicles their peers in the army enjoyed, relying on a hodgepodge of German armaments and foreign heavy weapons. But the 716th
Not a good
was not
strat.
alone at Omaha, as other areas were defended by the much more powerful 352nd Infantry Division. As battle was joined on the beach and American servicemen scrambled for cover, machine gunner Heinrich Zavelo of the 352nd could see the water spouts where my machine gun bursts were hitting, and when the little fountains got close to the GIs, they threw themselves down. They lay in the shallow water. Many tried to get to the most forward beach obstacles to find some cover behind them. I fired some more at the many dark foams in the water. Zavelo Sr., one Lieutenant Frerking, pitied the Americans as poor swine, even as he called more artillery strikes onto the floundering infantry. All over the beach, Zavelo could see wounded moving around on the bloody, watery slime, mostly creeping, trying to get to the upper beach and find some cover behind the shingle embankment. One by one, they would occasionally run in a crouch.
I'd hate to be the first person on the
and their
beach.
heavy weaponry would make Omaha the deadliest landing on D-Day.
Now we're on Sword Beach. Which beach was that actually again? I think that might have been the British that took that one.
The overstretched Germans were severely lacking in air support or completed fortifications, and had utterly failed to coordinate with coastal artillery in their sector. The area teemed with vacation homes and coastal settlements, and save for some emplacements in the sand dunes and a handful of beach obstacles, was largely undeveloped.
Yeah.
The individual soldiers were also of low quality, with Lieutenant Karl Haida bemoaning the condition of his division's officers. Many had been severely wounded previously. Some became unpleasant or socially inept due to their early harsh war experiences. I will not deny that some did get drunk at times. Lieutenant Schaff of the 716th noted that the rank and file were overworked and ill-motivated, too busy putting up wire and planting Rommel's asparagus to have much time for training. Indeed, the mix of Germans and Osttruppen defending Sword Beach routinely evinced a lack of care, as artilleryman Hans Glaub describes his fellow gunners failing to keep
Kind
their
of cruel
pieces clean.
what you just did there, homie. That bird just went to
Sword
live.
would prove to be a relatively smooth landing, with the Germans yielding the beach to British forces with minimum casualties.
Yep.
Their attitude would change when they met the more professional soldiers of the 21st Panzer Division, launching a two-pronged counterattack to the east and west of Sword.
And they got
However,
proper
Major Hans
soldiers,
von
but they've
Luck,
already
commander
lost
of the Eastern Thrust, wrote in his memoir, Panzer Commander, of
entirely.
attempting to lead the 2nd Battalion of the 21st against dug-in British paratroopers, only to be stymied by Allied
Alright, so it was
aircraft
the
and naval fire.
British that took the Sword Beach.
The German defense at Utah Beach was compromised by the airborne operations. Cut phone lines had crippled their ability to exchange information, while the spread-out landing zones made mounting a large-scale defense difficult. Utah and its environs were defended primarily by the 709th Infantry Division, made up of older Germans and the ever-ubiquitous Osttruppen, armed with a bizarre mix of weapons. French, German, Polish, even Russian armaments filled their stores, but blessed with competent leadership, at least. Lieutenant General Karl Wilhelm Graf von Schlieben, overall commander of the 709th, would order an actual organized counterattack in the face of the airborne assault,
Which
arranging
is
for the
outdated
100th Panzer Battalion to drive forward to meet the 82nd Airborne at Saint-Mère-Iglay, and at their critical bridgehead over the Mériday. The 100th would be driven back by the 82nd.
What's with this anime-like style stuff for Pokemon?
Deployed against the Americans were annihilated with bazookas and gammon grenades.
Well,
The 82nd
yeah,
were
that
not
was
the
super
only
effective,
paratroopers
alright.
in the area. The 6th Paratroop Regiment, under the command of Major von der Heite, pushed out of Carentan to
I really
reinforce
do love the
ground-based
visual for like how they
columns.
do the art for this
As
stuff,
they came
though.
upon the Americans' landing zones, the Germans were astonished at the number of parachutes left behind. Yards and yards of silk littered the fields of France. The Fallschirmjäger would push onto the commune Saint-Condiment, where Heite climbed the church steeple and saw the endless armada in the channel. Things were not much better for the Germans on the beach proper. Lieutenant Arthur Janke commanded Fort W5, a network of bunkers and pillboxes built into the dunes over the beaches, which was all but destroyed by the morning bombings. Janke recalled
Made
his
pillboxes, lost pillboxes.
Avalanches of sand and concrete buried his men alive, forcing them to be dug out even as the assault on the beaches began.
Damn. Had to dig for his troops while
Spotting
fighting.
the American landing craft, Janke ordered what men he could rally to dig in, and ordered a dispatch rider to make for the nearest artillery battery to shell the beach. Janke's rider would be intercepted by American paratroopers. There was little Janke and his men could do as the landings began in earnest. With men and floating tanks fighting their way through the surf and straight toward the ruins of W.
That sounds so terrifying to hear, that floating tanks.
And as his eyes fought to focus and the ringing in his ears subsided, he looked up through his skewed spectacles to see an American infantryman standing over him.
The bloody first. And now we're going to Berlin.
As combat intensified on Normandy and reports of paratroopers and an Allied fleet flooded high command, the General Staff thought to themselves, "This is all an elaborate ruse." The General Staff passed this thought around as Hitler slept in. As more and more Allied troops and heavy equipment began making their way onto the beaches, Hitler finally rolled out of bed to be met with word of the invasion of France. The Führer could not have been happier. Hitler declared again that the Atlantic Wall would throw the Allies back, and he
that's right. He was really confident in victory.
Of the Normandy landings by raining V1 bombs on London. The Western armies would be ground into the sands of France, and the seat of his hated British enemies would be blown to smithereens by superior German weaponry. But as the day dragged on, and the Allies began to gain ground, the frontline commanders flooded High Command with requests for support, requests to do something to prevent their positions from being overrun. The beacons of Normandy were lit, but High Command would not answer the call for aid.
They really like adding memes.
The only man on Earth who could release the panzers would continue to insist that the Allies could and should be thrown back on the shore.
Tales of the Gold Beach. I think this was French that took this, or was it also British?
Into some of the defenders on Gold Beach. Friedrich Wurster helped crew a battery of 4 captured Czech cannons at Marie-Fontaine near the beach.
No, why would I said French? We're in the French thing. Of course, it's British that took this. I don't know why I said French. We're in France.
Was impenetrable, an attitude he kept right up until the British overran his commander's spotting position near the shore.
British.
In the face of Allied superiority in men and materiel, Wurster and his fellows quietly surrendered. Further behind the lines, the Germans were hard at work trying to corral the French civilian population. Propaganda vans drove through Caen, ordering the population to remain indoors while the German authorities began to arrange for the evacuation of key parts of the city. At von Rundstedt's headquarters outside of Paris, telephones rang continuously, and teletypes spewed seemingly infinite messages. Combat at Gold Beach began in earnest when the first landing craft dropped their ramps. The moment the metal hit the surf, German machine guns and artillery opened up on the British troops, who fought hard to clear the beach and sweep the fortified
Take those beaches, boys.
The Germans had worked into their defenses. Indeed, the Germans put up a fierce fight at Gold, with elements of the 352nd Infantry raining fire on the British from a cliff top over the beach at Amel, including devastating volleys.
Yeah, that would help a lot.
The British were only able to unseat the Germans at Amel with tank support, including a mortar-armed member of Hobart's Funnies.
They won it at least. Alright, next beach. Oh, how many beaches did we invade in this again? I thought it was 4?
Juno Beach in the early morning hours. Lieutenant Peter Hansman of the 12th recalled being awoken by his NCO in charge, shaking my shoulders. Herr Leutnant, the invasion has started. Hansman rushed to a vantage point near Gold Beach. Looking through my binoculars, I recognized the individual outlines of ships.
Oh yeah, those are a bunch of boats.
Flashes of ships' artillery were coming from various spots. Fast boats with high, white, foamy bow waves were spitting out brown clumps of men on the beach.
Yep.
The lieutenant counted over 400 ships in the channel from his front.
That's a lot of boats.
To the end of the Third Reich. I wanted to shout at all the generals right up to Adolf Hitler, over here, quickly, before it's too late. Whoever can still fight, come here. The fastest, most powerful divisions, send them here. The Luftwaffe, where is it? The Kriegsmarine, where is it? It must get here. Grenadier
they were really desperate.
Who defended a position on Juno dubbed WN-31, recalled watching the first Tommies jumping into the sea, which was quite shallow. The bullets hit them and their boats to good effect, and I was a little surprised to see them falling. I don't know why. Weiner's position was eventually torn apart by the tanks coming ashore with the Canadians, which managed to drive inland.
Oh yeah, there was some Canadians in there as well. That's who I was thinking of.
Them as they emerged from the surf. 88mm gunner Heinrich Zebel complained of not being able to see many tanks due to the smoke and chaos, though his gun claimed at least 2 Allied tanks before their blockhouse 2 was blown apart. The Germans provided a much tougher obstacle for their foes at the Tailleville Chateau, roughly 1 mile or 1.5 kilometers inland. Tailleville was supposed to be the starting point for a second line of defensive works laid out by Rommel before the Allied landings came.
So rather than putting their best troops on the beach, it looks like they put their worst, from what I'm seeing here, it looks like they put their worst troops on the beach, where they would have the best chance to hold. And then once the not even the Americans, the Allies took the beach, then they would have better troops farther inland. Which kind of defeats the purpose, because at that point, the Allies already have ground on the beaches.
It was a well-built strongpoint, with a full communication and command complex, and underground tunnels connecting it to Tobruk turrets armed with machine guns, cannons, and mortars. The defenders managed to hold the Allies back until nearly 6 p.m. that day, with their final message before the position was taken reading, "Hand-to-hand fighting inside the command post, hemmed into a closely confined area, but still holding out. Heil Hitler." Not
And
long
then they were
after the
killed.
fall of Taivil, the Canadians began making their way toward the Luftwaffe airfield.
Yeah, oh, they had to do with the Canadians. Yeah, no wonder they lost.
The commandant of the
A
airfield
lot of war
ordered an
crimes.
evacuation,
Lots and lots of war
inciting
crimes
panic
committed by the
throughout
Canadians in
France.
World
The
War
Germans
II.
made a hurried attempt to destroy the aircraft before they evacuated, but their haste proved fatal. Attempts to raise the airfield left most of the taxiing area of the runway untouched. The takeoff runway was damaged, but not sufficiently to render it unusable, and the vast majority of the field's fuel stores were salvageable. In this one case, haste ended up lessening waste. While Operation Bagration in the east shattered the Germans' precious battle lines at the cost of around 400,000 men.
Cool.
With Germany's forces being ground to a pulp by the Soviets, Romania and Bulgaria defected in 1944, and the panicked Germans occupied Hungary to prevent their defection, even
Cool.
as the Hungarian Prime Minister begged the Soviets for a separate peace. Though German ferocity delayed the Allied advance, they could not match their superiority in men, materiel, and air power.
Yep.
Hemorrhaging manpower, and with hardly any supplies or economic strength remaining, the Germans had to get creative to replace their mounting losses.
Yeah,
In
it's
addition to raising 78
a
Volksgrenadier
lot of troops going
divisions
down.
and moving extant regiments around to create new armies on paper, the Germans made a desperate attempt to augment their forces in the form of the Volkssturm, or
Oh.
People's Storm. On October 18, 1944, Hitler personally ordered that all civilian males aged 16 to 60 join a new force that
16
would
to
continue to protect
60?
the Reich. The Volkssturm was not an organ of the Wehrmacht, which Hitler was beginning to see as weak and incompetent, but rather a paramilitary militia controlled by the Nazi Party. Allied intelligence at the time estimated that at full strength, the Volkssturm could have mustered over 13 million fighters to oppose the March to Berlin.
Jesus.
Less than half that number could put up an honest fight.
Okay, yeah, that's
The
also
Volkssturm
true.
were initially issued whatever uniforms could be scrounged up, but as the logistical situation deteriorated, their only standard piece of equipment became a black and red armband, identifying them as members of the militia, which led to members fighting in everything from civilian business suits to hand-me-down Imperial German kits from the First World War.
Sounds
The
about right.
Volkssturm were armed with a hodgepodge of civilian hunting rifles, weapons captured from Allied and Scandinavian countries, and surprisingly ingenious last-ditch weapons. An example of this last category
Oh, yeah,
is
the one
Eintoss
burst.
Flammenwerfer, a portable single-shot flamethrower. The Eintoss was essentially an oversized aerosol bottle designed to fire a single half-second gout of flame before being discarded, in the
Yeah.
same vein as the single-shot Panzerfaust. Such a weapon would have been as simple as point and roast, making it perfect for civilian users. German resistance would not end at the front line, however. Joseph Goebbels launched a massive propaganda push centered around a partisan network, Werwolf, which would, in theory, continue the war even in the event of a German defeat. People the foolish Allies would take for friendly civilians would in fact be hardened fighters, with National Socialism burning in their hearts and ready to transform at any moment into a fighting force to sow discord and strife among the Allies.
So,
Nazi
yeah,
partisans would, in
troopers.
reality, carry out or take credit for numerous assassinations and sabotage operations during the final years of the war. But the massive organization Goebbels wrote about was never a serious threat. With Wunderwaffe in hand, the Germans would win the war. Maybe. The Fuhrer realized that only a grand offensive could now conclude the war for Germany favorably. The question was where it stood the best chance of success.
Not
as
Russia.
action against the Soviets or in Italy would bear little fruit. There was, however, one sector which had historically served the German army well. Hitler, no doubt, fueled by a sense of 1940 nostalgia, ordered a massive armored attack through the lightly defended Ardennes region. His goal was to drive onto Antwerp and
Once
isolate
again.
the Commonwealth forces in Holland,
Poor
knocking
Belgium.
them out of the war and forcing Britain into another Dunkirk to save what soldiers would be left. Perhaps even triggering negotiations for peace and freeing up German troops to finally defeat the inferior
Man.
Soviets in the east. Hitler was proven partly right in his predictions when the offensive,
Man was
named
desperate,
Operation
is what he
March on
was.
Rhine, took the American defenders by complete surprise, causing panic in their lines.
Oh, panic.
However, in a characteristic display of hubris, Hitler and his high command had not only severely underestimated the fighting prowess of the American army, which after the initial shock continued to provide tenacious resistance on key crossroads and towns all over the Ardennes, but they had also failed to provide their army with enough
out of
food.
gas.
Exhausted and undersupplied, the battered remnants were ultimately ordered to withdraw entirely when a strong Allied counterattack forced its way through their weakened lines.
Gladly take that land back.
Hitler's final gamble had utterly failed, and with it Germany's last military reserves, so desperately needed to repel the forthcoming winter offensive on the Eastern Front, had been spent. Germany's remaining defenders now had their work cut out for them. In January 1945,
for some
the
reserves.
Soviets built on the momentum of Operation Bagration to launch the Vistula-Oder offensive, a crushing drive into Poland that saw Germany lose their first conquest of the war. With renowned Field Marshal Georgy Zhukov at the head, the Soviets obliterated 45 divisions and claimed to have killed or captured 400,000 men, stopping at the Oder
That's a
River,
lot of
the
troops.
fatherland. The propaganda minister recorded a feeling of utter terror sweeping through the capital of the Reich, as the citizens of Berlin worried that the Soviets had a clear path to the city. There is nothing between us, no anti-tank gun, no anti-tank obstacles, not a single soldier.
And there's
The eyes
Berlin.
of the world were now converging on Berlin, as Stalin's armies prepared for their final act of vengeance that would eradicate Nazi Germany once and for all. Although the Allies had promised to leave Berlin to the Red Army, the ever-paranoid Stalin still urged haste in the capture of the city. The final plan called for a three-pronged attack on the Berlin
And I'm
axis
guessing
to
they
encircle and capture the
lose,
city
maybe? I
within 12
forget.
to 15 days, then move on
How long
to
do...
meet the Allies.
Yeah, we still got about 30 minutes, so they're obviously probably going to lose it.
First Belarusian front would be at the center of the thrust, while Marshal Ivan Konev's first Ukrainian front to the south was set to attack across the Nysa River in the direction of Potsdam and Dresden. Finally, Marshal Konstantin Rokossovsky's second Belarusian front would tie down German forces to the north in the Stettin-Schwedt sector to prevent them from reinforcing Berlin. Having become accustomed to fighting on wide-open terrain, few in the Red Army had much experience in large-scale urban street fighting. It was up to General Vasily Choikov's 8th Guards Army, veterans of the Battle of Stalingrad, to distribute pamphlets on urban warfare.
I'll be right back, y'all. I'm going to pause the video for a second because I am getting very interested in this and I don't want to miss it. So I'll be right back. Alright, sorry about that. My cat wanted something. Oh, get back in the chair and let's get back to it.
Forces were formed. Red Army engineers, on their part, worked day and night to construct hundreds of bridges and thousands of wooden assault boats to cross the Oder and Nysa rivers. To achieve this, Soviet planners had to find a way to move 29 armies over hundreds of kilometers to create shock groups.
That's a lot of land.
Penetrating the German line in areas only 2.5 to 10 kilometers or 1.5 to 6 miles in width. When it was all said and done, the Red Army would advance on Berlin with some 2.5 million men, 6,250 tanks and self-propelled guns, and 7,500 combat aircraft. Aiming to make the invaders bleed for every inch of German soil, the Wehrmacht constructed a series of well-entrenched defensive lines which barricaded the way into Berlin. Manning these positions were the remains of Army Group Vistula and 4th Panzer Army, as well as the Berlin garrison. Combined, this force consisted of 750,000 German soldiers, supported by 1,519 tanks and assault guns, 9,303 guns and mortars, and 2,200 aircraft. However, these numbers looked more impressive on paper than they did in reality, as virtually all of its formations were under strength. Although many units were led by battle-hardened veterans of the Eastern Front, their rank and file was often made up of a mix of wounded, unfit, and inexperienced soldiers, and even
That's
boys
not
from
good.
Hitler Youth. Moreover, some 60,000 of the defenders came from undertrained and barely armed Volkssturm militia battalions. The infantry would not be able to count much on its armored and air assets either, as the Germans lacked the fuel reserves to keep its otherwise considerable force of fighting vehicles operational for any extended period of time. Morale was also at an all-time low. Most suffered from malnutrition and a lack of hygiene. And for the most fanatical Nazis, few now believed in the promise of final victory. Even so, every effort was made to convince the men that the much-anticipated Wunderwaffen would still turn the tide of the war, and that peace talks with the Western Allies were soon to bear fruit. But if these motivations were only marginally effective, the widespread fear of Soviet vengeance and barbarism drove even the most cynical to continue fighting.
That's fair enough.
The Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra.
People do get worried about revenge and getting taken over from it.
Was Richard Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries. 4 days later.
Also, I am sorry, I'm starting to talk less and less now. I'm starting to get really into it, so I'm trying to remember to talk every now and then, so it's not just listening to this, but I'm like getting really into just hearing the history of this stuff.
Another type of orchestra began to play as thousands of Katyusha rocket launchers and field guns of Zhukov's front opened up
that's a lot of rockets.
German defensive line along the Zelo Heights. Miles away in Berlin's eastern suburbs, houses began to shake as terrified citizens gathered in the street to listen to the start of the coming storm.
Nothing like getting to the streets while there's a war about to happen. Or not about to happen, I mean a battle. The war's already been going for years.
On the German side, everything was covered with smoke and thick foundations of earth in clumps flying up. There were huge flocks of scared birds flying around in the sky, a constant humming, thunder, explosions. We had to cover our ears to prevent our eardrums breaking. As the sound of artillery gradually faded, hundreds of men began shouting, "To Berlin," as tank engines roared and lead assault elements began advancing toward the heights. Many of the German defenders, unfortunate enough to have been caught in the preceding onslaught, had disappeared in the blink of an eye, while dazed and panic-stricken survivors rushed back toward the second defensive line. However, the awesome bombardment obscured serious problems in Zhukov's plan. The destruction caused by the shelling had been so great in scope that it had severely worsened the condition of the terrain that his men now had to traverse.
Oh yeah, true. It's kind of hard to go against tolls.
To blind the enemy, instead reflected onto the smoke-filled air and obscured the vision of the advancing infantry. In the resulting chaos, units lost contact with each other as Soviet artillery and aircraft began attacking friendly formations. Worse still, German intelligence had had prior knowledge of the coming offensive, which meant that many of the first-line troops had been evacuated to the safety of the rear. What ensued was nothing less than what a member of the Grossdeutschland Guard Regiment described as a slaughterhouse.
Fair.
Soldiers were cut down.
Not a lot of them were left.
Across the floodplains and through German minefields. In other sectors too, the attackers were cut down and repulsed as they attempted to cross the Oder. Sensing disaster, an increasingly agitated Zhukov ordered his 2 tank armies to attack at once. However, most of the infantry's artillery and supply vehicles were still trying to make their way to the front, causing the tank armies to become hopelessly stuck in an endless traffic jam.
Oh, traffic jam. Could you imagine that your military convoy gets into a traffic jam because there's too many vehicles you're sending?
Tanks and infantry armed with deadly Panzerfaust recoilless anti-tank launchers.
And there goes the tank attack.
Surprisingly, Zhukov's decimated men had made little progress at the the end of the first day, and it would take 3 more days and countless more dead before his armies finally forced their way through the final defensive line. Naturally, Stalin was infuriated, but he could rest easy in the fact that Konev's front to the south had seen more success.
That's
By the
true.
end of April the 18th, his tank armies were across the Spree River and were racing toward Berlin. Lacking sufficient reinforcements and ammunition, the surviving defenders in both sectors were forced into a headlong retreat. With the German defensive lines in the south and in the center broken, and with vital troops in the north still tied down in heavy fighting, the road to Berlin lay open. Lacking the
Nice
supplies
open
to
road.
keep on fighting, German morale now visibly began to collapse.
Damn.
Thousands of encircled men surrendered, while masses of stragglers, deserters, and refugees made their way into the doomed city. All the while, an increasingly delusional
This
Hitler
reaches some of y'all
continued
other
to
history
demand
nerds,
fanatical resistance
and y'all like this
until the
stuff.
bitter end. On April 20th, the Führer's birthday was rudely interrupted by Soviet artillery shelling
Yep.
Berlin's northeastern suburbs. As its citizens fled into cellars, Zhukov and Konev's tank armies began a frantic race to the city's outskirts.
Oh,
In the meantime,
there
the
goes
senior
Berlin.
officials of the Nazi Party engaged in a similar type of competition to be the first one to get permission to flee the city. Soldiers on the ground enjoyed no such privileges, and those who tried to run or displayed signs of cowardice were summarily hanged
Yeah.
in the city, with messages such as, "I was a coward" or "I was a deserter" dangling from their chests. The next morning, Soviet artillery fired a frenzied barrage into Berlin's city center, while the remains
Those
of
poor
General
troops,
Helmut
though, they
Weiss's
need a good bit of them
56th
may have not
Panzer
even
German
wanted to
Ninth
be there.
Army conducted a desperate withdrawal across Berlin's Autobahn ring, while being mercilessly strafed by Soviet aircraft. Other remnants of the German defense attempted in vain to stop Zhukov's armies from pushing into the city from the southwestern and northern flanks. However, its
Yep.
depleted units could only delay the enemy, and Zhukov and Konev's forces both reached the city's outskirts that evening. Believing himself to be the next
At that
friend
point,
of
they
the
should have
Reich,
just gave
Hitler
up.
remained confident that a massive counterstroke by the newly created Army Detachment Steiner
No, just give up, my man.
Zhukov's flanks would trap the invaders in the city in a ploy similar to what had befallen the Germans at Stalingrad 2 years prior. When it became clear on the following day that Steiner's army detachment lacked sufficient strength and ammunition to attack, the Führer finally cracked and openly admitted for the first time that all was hopelessly lost.
Yep. Down he
With the Soviets
goes.
breaking into the city, General Weidling was appointed commander of the Berlin defense area. However, by the time Weidling took command, only about 45,000 Wehrmacht and SS troops, just over 40,000 men of the Volkssturm, and a measly
Dude, just surrender. Please tell me you're
were
smart enough
left
to
standing
surrender.
to defend the city against some 1.5 million Soviet troops. Unsurprisingly, Zhukov's armies had managed to push
Nope,
the
he
defenders
doesn't.
out of the eastern and southeastern suburbs by the end of the 23rd, while other fronts tightened their grasp around the city's flanks. With inevitable defeat looming on the horizon, many of the defenders began to lay down their arms. Others, however, continued to resist fanatically.
Huh.
At the Tempelhof airport, a mixed group of SS-led German defenders, including some 100 Hitler Youth, wreaked havoc on the attacking Soviet infantry.
I don't know why it's black right here. I guess they don't have anything to play right here?
Capture the airport a day later. By that time, the
Yep, there we go,
encirclement
it's
of
back.
Berlin had been completed. However, a
Also,
news
hello,
report
cat. What
promised
would you
Weidling
like?
that yet another massive counteroffensive by General Wenck's 12th Army in the southwest was sure to come to the rescue of the beleaguered defenders. Wenck, however, had no intention on embarking in a futile suicide mission, and
Nope.
instead moved to relieve encircled German troops further to the east.
Yep.
With no further hope of relief, Weidling urged the Führer to stage a breakout westward to join up with remnants of Army Group Vistula. Hitler, however, rejected the plan and restated his intention to fall at the head of his troops. During the next 3 days, the Red Army tightened its hold on Berlin as the advancing armies...
Oh, there's some kids playing outside in the back. You can hear them screaming. Yeah, it's some neighbors' kids.
fronts, however, led to various formations competing for space.
That's why my cat got up.
Confused in the ensuing quagmire. were to be redeployed to Czechoslovakia, while Zhukov was to go in for the final kill. By the end of the 29th,
Oh,
the 8th Guards Army had
yep.
blasted its way through the heavily defended Tiergarten sector, while the 3rd Shock Army had crossed the Spree over the Moltke Bridge just to the north. In front of them lay the ultimate prize, the blackened walls of the Reichstag, the former parliamentary building widely regarded as the symbolic heart of the Third Reich. Capturing it would be nothing less than the culmination of the entire Soviet war effort.
Come on, Soviet boys. Finish them off.
Was led by a determined group of mostly foreign SS fighters with little less to lose. In the morning of the following day, Soviet artillery opened fire as a few hundred...
So they're just fighting for this courtyard now.
After a heavy firefight, the men reached the main entrance and proceeded to clear the building in brutal close-quarters combat.
Yeah.
After hours of bitter fighting, the red banner was spotted hanging from the 2nd floor at around...
And it's over for that area. Let's go. I don't know why they have it like black here for some parts.
2 sergeants, identified as Mikhail Yegorov and Meliton Kantaria, managed to reach the top and hoisted the hammer and sickle on top of the Reichstag, marking the symbolic end of Hitler's Third Reich. As this historic moment unfolded, an even more momentous event occurred barely a kilometer away. With Soviet troops converging on his bunker complex, the embittered Führer knew that he had reached the end of the line. The German people had failed him and his vision of a 1,000-year Reich. After giving Weidling the go-ahead to attempt a belated breakout, the Führer said his farewells to his remaining staff, poisoned his dog Blondie, and retired to his study room to commit suicide together with his newly wedded bride, Eva Braun.
Yep.
But Hitler's death did not put an immediate end to the fighting. The new chancellor, Joseph Goebbels, rejected Stalin's demand for an unconditional surrender of the garrison, prompting the Red Army to blast the remaining German positions until the defense was reduced to little more than a few isolated pockets. With Goebbels' subsequent suicide being announced that night...
Okay, so they both commit... So Hitler basically gave up, committed suicide, then this dude took over and said no, then destroyed Toulouse, and then killed himself. Okay.
In Berlin could finally be opened. At 6 a.m. on May 2nd, General Weidling officially ordered his remaining...
Then he took over.
...their arms. When the guns finally fell silent in the afternoon, an eerie silence descended on the city of which Choikov would later write, "The flame of World War was quenched there, whence it arose." Although fighting in Europe would continue until Germany's unconditional surrender on May 8th, the war had come to a climax at the Battle of Berlin. The capture of Germany's capital had cost the Red Army an estimated 78,000 men killed in action and over 274,000 wounded. In return, the Germans had lost some 90 to 100,000 men killed in action, as well as at least another 200,000 wounded. During their advance into Germany, the vengeful Red Army had left a trail of pillage and destruction in its wake. An estimated 95,000 to 130,000 women in Berlin alone are said to have been sexually assaulted,
Yeah.
10,000 would later commit suicide. Still, many Germans were relieved that the conflict was finally over, and that a semblance of normal human life was slowly returning under shared Allied Soviet occupation. However, the alliance between the two victors would prove short-lived, and the start of the Cold War would usher a new type of crisis in the city, which had suffered so much during the Second War.
A lot of Cold War shit.
The German soldier's shovel pierces the soft loam.
What's this part?
For the last year, he has worked on a farm in the southern United States, transferred to a labor detail after several months in a detention center. And his fellows have spent their time laboring in the fields, watching American films, and thinking about what they'll do once the war is over. The Americans work their charges hard, but they are fed well and are treated better than the black sharecroppers who labor alongside them. Perhaps, our soldier thinks, he will have a new trade to practice when he returns home. The German soldier's shovel strains against the frozen earth.
Yeah, that's what happened to the Russian ones.
In the Soviet Union, transferred to a labor detail after several months in a detention center. He and his fellows have spent their time shunting frozen corpses, languishing in Spartan barracks, and fighting desperately to survive. The Soviets work their charges hard, but the privations of war mean the communists can barely feed themselves, much less prisoners of war. Perhaps our soldier thinks he will soon join his former comrades who stare blankly at him from the pit.
Yeah, that's basically what happened, to put it frankly.
VE Day was declared in 1945. The Allied powers held roughly 11 million German soldiers as prisoners of war. The vast majority of these, close to 8 million, had been captured by the Western Allies, while the remaining 3 million were in the custody of the Soviet Union. With Europe liberated from Nazi aggression, the Allied powers were left with a critical question: what to do with their 11 million POWs? The issue was a divisive one, to say the least, as while the Western Allies were signatories to the Geneva Convention, which very clearly demanded the release of prisoners the moment the war ended, the Soviets had notably abstained from signing the international agreement. This meant that a captured German soldier's fate was ostensibly decided by whose hands they fell into. But
It
war
really
is
was.
a brutal business, and sometimes even international law is just ink on a piece of paper. During the war years, German soldiers were imprisoned in roughly 20 countries around the world, including in the continental United States. While stateside,
Alright. Well, I was only going to look at the actual war part, and the war itself, events that happened are over. So what we're going to do is watch a quick 10-minute video on the Germans' wonder weapons that they talked about much earlier in the video that Hitler really wanted. And that will probably be in a stream. So let's hop into it and see what these wonder weapons are. The video is once again by the Armchair Historian. Great videos, have it animated, all that stuff. So if you want to learn history but you find it boring, definitely recommend him, because he is much more likely to keep you entertained. There was that one I was talking about, that tank earlier, that weird looking tank, that little round one you saw for half a second.
Hi, I'm Griffin Johnson, the Armchair Historian. Beyond the realm of sensible history, Nazi science and engineering conjures stories of 1,000-ton tanks, flying saucers, and even orbital space lasers. Fanciful tales that were sometimes detrimental to Germany's more productive designs. Today, we see what separates fact from fiction with the German wonder weapons of the Second World War.
Yep, let's see what these wonder weapons were. Let's see how crazy they were.
The sponsor of today's
War of
video,
Tanks
Call of War,
2.
a free online
Call of
PvP
War,
strategy game that lets you
War
choose
2.
a real country and lead it to victory.
You boys know what to
Second
do.
World War.
Check out
Forge
his
alliances,
sponsored for
declare
this.
war
Help
on your
support
neighbors,
him,
and engage
even though
in
he's
huge weeks-long
definitely much
one-player
bigger than me.
matches
You
on
know,
your PC and
if you're watching me, you probably already watched him. But definitely, if you haven't watched him before, go check out their stuff and do this.
mobile devices, using a wide array of units and weapons and multiple strategies. I especially recommend building the Secret Lab, which allows you to produce your own arsenal of war-winning wonder weapons, like railway guns, flying bombs, rocket fighters, and nuclear bombers, to help you achieve ultimate victory. Support our channel and click the link in the description within the next 30 days to receive 13,000 gold and 1 month of premium subscription for free.
Oh, y'all heard that.
In the world of research and development, many concepts that reach the wider public barely pass the prototype phase, much less the assembly line. With some concepts that came out of Germany, however, a few were downright conspiratorial. Perhaps the most famous of these make-believe marvels was Die Glocke, or the Bell, described as an anti-gravity flying saucer made by the Nazis, but never actually deployed. credible research and evidence claims that no such device was ever proposed or even existed at all. Yet the myth stubbornly clings to the fringes of historical conspiracies since its first appearance in Igor Vitkovsky's book, The Truth About the Wunderwaffe, back in 2000. Veering out of pure fiction, we step out into the less ridiculed but nonetheless amusing world of proposals. Here, the most bizarre idea came in the form of the Sonnengewehr, or sun gun. This theoretical design was first proposed by German physicist Hermann Oberth in 1929, who drew up plans for a space station equipped with a 9-square-kilometer concave mirror which would concentrate reflected sunlight onto the Earth for a devastating effect.
That's a weird one.
Adopted by a group of German scientists at the German Army Artillery Proving Grounds at Hillersleben, where the plans for this orbital death ray were seriously considered. And the scientists in charge of the project believed that construction could be completed within 50 to 100 years. In actuality, the concept was flawed from the start, given how light interacts with mirrors at certain focal lengths. Simply put, the proposed distance of the Sonnengewehr from the Earth would have produced a reflection from the Sun numbering around 64 kilometers in diameter, too large to produce any kind of damaging heat. At worst, the Allies would have to squint their eyes looking up at the sky. The more realistic aspects of Germany's research and development delved into the capabilities of tanks on the battlefield. These experiments were pushed to their limits through several projects. One such vehicle was the
Yes, this is the weirdest thing I've ever seen, and I loved it for some reason. I found it so stupid but cool looking at the same time.
Also known as the ball tank. This
one-man
armored vehicle is shrouded in mystery, as no records or documentation have ever been found.
So I know it did get made.
Was discovered, and it was actually captured
by
the Soviets in 1945.
Please tell me they kept it.
Given to the Japanese. Its design, specifically its lack of armament, suggested that the ball tank may have been in.
I really hope it's still in like Japan or something.
The Landkreuzer P 1000 Rata, or RAT, was another experimental tank concept. It was a proposed super heavy tank that would have weighed 1,000 tons and featured two 280mm SKC-34 naval cannons as
That's a big tank.
Armaments. The plans for the RAT were approved by Adolf Hitler himself in 1942, but there is some debate among historians about whether the massive blueprints discovered after the war were ever truly intended for production. Contrasting the rather wild concepts of German armor, like the Kugelpanzer, more serious programs were established that looked to create a new type of super heavy class tank. These tanks were intended to be superior to the tanks used by the Allies, with heavier armor and more powerful guns. The initial idea of the RAT's 1,000-ton design was scrapped, yet the core idea was never fully dropped, as work began on the Panzer VIII Mouse, weighing in at a more conservative 180 tons. It was nonetheless monstrous in weight as well as armament, with its 128mm and 75mm cannons.
That's a big cannon.
Also led to a number of technical and logistical problems. Ultimately, only 2 prototypes were completed.
And away the tank goes.
Many of these projects beginning in the early war, experimental weapon development began receiving serious attention around mid to late 1942. Albert Speer, the Minister of Armaments and War Production, oversaw the establishment of the Wunderwaffen program, part of his effort to boost the legitimacy of Hitler's regime through propaganda based on arms manufacturing, and leaned heavily into the promise of these incredible miracle weapons as a means of turning the tide of the war. The most
Sounds about right.
These projects were the V-1 and V-2 rocket programs. While technically impressive, the targeting capabilities of these weapons were extremely inaccurate. Launched from sites within Axis territory, these rockets were only viable for indiscriminate bombing of large urban centers like London or Antwerp, killing approximately 18,000 people during the war. The V2 rocket was developed and assembled almost exclusively by slave laborers drawn from the inmates of the Mittelbau-Dora concentration camp in central Germany. Thousands of these laborers were subject to nightmarish conditions, many dying as a result. In addition to the V-weapons, advancements in the German armored focus and heavy class tanks
lots of cool bombs and tanks.
also known as
I'll put it like this, idea-wise, they were cool and such.
Weighing roughly 70 tons and required a crew of 5 to operate.
Tanks are big the more you think about them, really.
Of the war, with a powerful 88mm gun and thick armor, but its production was slow and costly.
Slow and costly, it's bad.
On the eastern and western fronts. Advancements in jet aircraft design led to the eventual creation.
Yeah, I do remember seeing that. That was supposed to be a really cool jet and plane. I really like how this one. I really liked how that one with the thruster on the top looks.
Which essentially used a rocket engine to take off at absurd speeds, making it the first piloted aircraft to exceed 1,000 kilometers per hour in level flight, overshadowing the frightening reputation of its highly volatile and corrosive rocket propellant, which killed more than its fair share of pilots.
Oh, okay, so it killed a lot of its pilots, though. Not as cool as I thought, then.
And substantial projects to come out of
hello, sir. You waved at me.
The STG-44, the world's first operational assault rifle.
So they made the assault rifle.
But the two guns did not share much in common on the technical level.
Okay.
With small arms breakthroughs, support equipment was also devised, like the Zielgerät
Vampire.
Vampire. Gun sight for the STG.
What the hell kind of sight is that?
The first night vision devices used in
oh, it's a night vision. Okay.
While impressive, these breakthroughs arrived during Nazi Germany's perpetual crippling resource shortages, which prevented any of these devices from being produced in significant enough numbers to make any real difference in the war.
That makes sense.
Germany's engineering ventures,
I'm actually curious what would have happened if that, like some of the actual more useful ones. I'm wondering what would have happened if they made them closer to the start of the war, when they had resources and stuff to make it.
As the Uranverein, or Uranium Club, which made significant progress toward developing nuclear warheads to go on to the V2 missiles. However, the program was consistently held back by a lack of available funding and resources. Ultimately, the Allied-led Operation Gunnerside destroyed production facilities involved in the manufacturing of heavy water vital program at Vemork, Norway, which derailed the Uranium Club and ended any chance of German nuclear warheads becoming a reality.
Well, at least that God knows what would happen if Germans got their hands on nukes first.
Prototypes and testing grounds were captured intact by the Allies. Information picked out for destruction was related to human experimentation and other crimes against humanity. However, many of these researchers involved in these Wunderwaffen projects were brought over to the United Kingdom, Soviet Union, and United States to continue their work well into the Cold War. What other wonder weapons would you like to see next? Be sure to discuss them in the comments for a future video.
Alright, with that said, I'm also going to end stream because I have stuff I need to do. It was fun. I will be streaming tomorrow. I did miss Wednesday last week because I had some stuff I needed to end up doing. But coming up next week, that will not be happening, and we will in fact be live Wednesday as well, but I will see y'all, let's see, tomorrow.